Just straight up operational, kind of limited, you know. And who knows, the rules may change next week. It's been changing. Oh, good. We'll get that at some point here soon then.
I had to do the ID meeting. Gary still has to do it, but he signed the forms that we needed.
Very good.
You can do it. You're wrong. And that, I mean, I'm experienced.
It's all good.
Just they did that.
Sheila?
They said it's expensive.
All right, at this time, I'm going to call this June 28th, 2021 special meeting, the county council to order. This time, if you rise with me, we'll say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you today for your blessings upon our lives, your grace, and your mercy. We seek your wisdom tonight, Father, as we deal with these issues. Sometimes we just maybe don't know what totally to do. We've got people that no doubt are concerned, but Lord, we want to do right. We want to do right with the taxpayer as well as our employees. So, Father, you have your way tonight. Be with those who might be in harm's way, God. Keep your hand of protection upon them. For we ask this in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Okay, a quick admin note, we have a quorum tonight. However, Chuck House will not be in attendance. Before close of business today, policy ordinances were sent from Jim to the auditor, and I would like to add those to the agenda tonight and take them up next. But in order to do so, I'd like to have a motion for that.
Andy, I apologize. You say policy orders?
Yeah, so let me be more specific. Over comp time, over additional appropriations, and over reduction appropriations. Resolutions on all three.
Okay, and they will be taken up tonight.
Yeah, he'll read them and go through them real quick if we.
Okay, so you need a motion?
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we allow it to be read and then act on, or not act on, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I'll second that.
Okay. Motion on the floor by Nick, seconded by Anton. Anything further? Questions? Okay.
Council, if I may, just on, if you have before you the part that says Owen County Council, ordinance number 2021 blank, and then you'll see one that says reduction of an appropriation of ordinance, and the other one says an additional appropriation. This is merely forms, so what you would actually be doing, you would not be approving, say, an actual resolution. This is, if you are pleased with this format, what's really required by the State Board of Accounts is when you either do an appropriation of an ordinance or a reduction, it should actually be in an ordinance form. So you have a written form advertised. So this would be simply, if you look at these, if these are, if these are satisfactory, this would just be a vote to approve these forms for the auditor to use from now on when you have an appropriation or a reduction.
Okay, we'll vote. Are you good with these? Okay, let's go ahead and vote, and I'll give you the floor. All right, any other questions? We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? It'll be 6-0. Jim will give you the floor.
Okay, now this next one, and I apologize, did you have a number? This is a resolution number. This would be for the compensatory time.
Do you need the ordinance numbers for these first?
They're just approving the forms. This is not an actual ordinance being passed, just they've approved these template forms.
The resolution number is 20.
20, okay. So councils, this is an actual resolution for your consideration. This deals with compensatory time. It is required by law that it be read out loud and for you to discuss. This is resolution number 2021-20, Owen County Council. This will be a resolution to establish procedures for the payment of accumulated compensatory time. Whereas, there are occasions when Owen County is legally required to pay compensatory time to employees, for example, when employees leave employment with the county. And whereas, there may be certain occasions where Owen County finds it preferable as a policy to pay accumulated compensatory time rather than required to be used for time off by employees. Whereas, the Owen County Council disfavors outright payments to employees to cover accumulated compensatory time. Whereas Owen County Council desires to establish a policy for payment of accumulated time which will place the responsibility for supplying funds for any such payouts with departments that have allowed employees to accumulate compensatory time. Now therefore be it resolved by the Owen County Council the following procedures shall be used for the payment of compensatory time. Section 1, payments to cover accrued compensatory time shall be made through a line dedicated for such payments and established in the County Council's budget. Section 2, funds for the payment to cover the accrued time shall be transferred from departments in which compensatory time has been allowed to accrue into the compensatory time payment line in the council's budget. Section 3, funds for the payment to cover accrued time shall be covered from the department's budget in the following order of preference. A, from the remainder of the budgeted amount in the salary line of the employee who has accrued the compensatory time. For example, in instances where the employee has left employment with Owen County or with this specific department. B, from other funds budgeted in the department's personnel lines. C, from other funds budgeted in the department's supplies or other services or charges line. D, from additional appropriations. Because Owen County Council does not favor the use of additional appropriations to cover compensatory time payouts, elected officials and department heads seeking additional appropriations for this purpose must demonstrate they have exhausted all possible line items in their budget before requesting an additional appropriation. Section 4, elected officials, department heads who know they will be required to make compensatory time payments in 2022 due to retirements, resignations, or any other termination of the employer-employee relationship shall make provisions to cover these payments in the 2022 budgets. These funds should be viewed as dedicated or encumbered for that purpose so that no additional appropriations for compensatory time shall be sought from the Owen County Council. This resolution will be full force and effect immediately upon publication by law, if so passed and adopted by today's date. The Owen County Council of the State of Indiana had a regular meeting held on today's date of 2021. Owen County Council is comprised of Angela President, Earl Keith Vice President, Nick Robertson, Paula Chester, Chuck Hess, Anton Neff, and Case Bear. If so adopted tonight, will be attested by Sheila Reeves Auditor.
So Kathleen, regarding the request that she's made, there was some difference with you. So my question is, because she's got her on board and so on and so forth, so do they in fact fall under the same policy as everyone else?
Yeah, this county policy, as far as how department heads or elected officials would come to you, would be universal. Now, the budgets or how they would do the advisory, but you are the county council, you would make the appropriations if necessary, or determine the fact if necessary.
Have any other questions? All right, we can go ahead and go through all three of them if you want, and then do a motion to adopt the forms for all three, or do it individually. What would you recommend, council?
I apologize again. On these two templates, all it takes is just a motion. I apologize. I thought you had adopted these forms.
You made a motion.
This is an actual substantial resolution that, if passed and after published, would actually be the new policy for compensatory time.
Okay. The motion was to add this to the agenda, so.
Oh, okay, then, Andy, if I was getting with this, I apologize. So yes, these two though would be completely separate. These are just the templates So then you would just be voting if these are the proper templates that you want. That's all.
I'll ask all members to look over those real quick as well, and then we'll entertain a motion for adoption or not.
Yeah, I think they're a great start. My only concern is that, and I know it is broken out by category, but usually, kind of at the line item level, we would typically want those dollar amounts. So, what do you recommend on that, Jim, as far as how it's broken down by category?
Oh, okay, so, I'm gonna use just made up numbers.
Okay,
Let's say for personal services, you would like to see a line item, like it be personal service, but it would be line item, 1,000.555. I could easily make those adjustments and under there, just leave a space for the line items.
okay, so you would list the line items, but kind of within those categories.
Correct, so you'd have personal
Okay.
services, you'd have blanks for whatever line items you would need, then you could go to supplies, and you could go to the services.
So depending on the amount, the size of the budget, you might have, 3 times the number of lines in the ordinance with that level of detail in them.
Correct, but you would always want to keep it just on one fund, only one fund per.
Sure.
Per one. But yeah, that's correct, if you had 3 or 4 different areas you were gonna make appropriations in, yeah, that'd be actually a very easy fix, just to leave some extra blanks on that.
Yeah, and then township assistance is listed, but we really don't have that, so that category would probably just be something to eliminate.
It is listed in the DLGF upload site for the township specifically, so I would assume there's
But for the
something
county?
there. It's
Interesting.
in there, and I can only enter one thing at a time. So if you had a request for 5 different salaries, I still could only enter them one at a time. So basically, you're looking at a sheet of paper per one if there's more than one item.
Okay, so you can't put multiple items
You can only enter
in this
one.
form then, okay.
So we just leave it like it is then, correct?
I think leave it like it is with the edits
Just
of a
one
couple
for-
more boxes after each classification with the line.
Or would you have for like supplies, would you have to have one for each? So we don't need the additional,
Right.
okay, yeah.
You wouldn't need the
I
additional
mean, you could
lines.
add the boxes on here if you had, 3 things that you were buying in a total amount, it would be on one sheet. I still would have to enter them one at a
Separate
time.
one, okay.
Okay. As long as the categories are sufficient and they really help Sheila out.
Right.
She's the one that processes a lot of this.
Okay, so you've
Yeah.
got the edits that are requested noted. And so at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve this.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 2 forms as templates for the stated purposes.
Second,
Motion for by Anton to approve the stated forms as templates, stated purposes, second by Amy. Further discussion? Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0. Thank you all for adding that in there. We'll get him moving on now. All right, at this time, I'm gonna open the public hearing.
Did you want to discuss the comp time?
Oh,
We'll take some action on that.
yeah, let's go ahead. We'll close the public hearing. All right, Jim, go ahead.
Okay, well, how this would work by the way the resolution is, you would have an item with amount in your budget. So there would be money to pay the comp time. However, where would that funding come from? it would be at the request of the department. So I'm gonna just pick on the one department that doesn't exist, it's the blacksmith department. They have an employee that has decided that they're going to retire tomorrow. They have a period of comp time that has been earned. What would happen then is that payroll amount that they have could not be filled until that comp time is existed. So the employer would get, the employee would get his or her comp time. But the department, in this case the blacksmith, then would have to transfer the actual funds from that salary line item. So that's part one, into the council comp time. So the council is not actually paying for it, the department would be. So that before the department could hire a new individual, that comp time would have to be exhausted by the funds. The departments could also use other funds if they have different other personnel lines, they have other supplies, they have other charges. That department would have to go through and exhaust all of those items and transfer that money into the council's compensatory time. Only at the last result, where all of this has been exhausted and you're legally obligated to pay compensatory time, would there be the department head, elected official coming and seeking an actual payout from the Owen County Council. The other expectation with this resolution is looking ahead to 2022, the department would be required to go ahead and mathematically look at all of their existing comp time and square that in their budget as if they knew I'm gonna have one, I'm gonna have 3 people retire, this is likely they've got to include that part in their budget rather than seeking additional personnel or different items. The reality is that comp time is an actual cost. The analogy that I would use is, and I don't run any departments, I'm just saying this as an analogy, but if you're looking and say, well, I want to use this person for comp time, would you actually at that particular time pay them time and a half if it was overtime, or would you pay an actual money? If the answer is no, then you would want to have a very limited amount of comp time. What has happened, and this is not uncommon in 92 counties, comp time just kind of grows. It gets kind of set up with this idea, hey, can you hang around for a couple hours? That sounds great. And then by the next week, take off 2 hours early. But what's happening is it's growing. It is an actual cost to the county. I want to be clear about that. I mean, once every hour that comp is granted, and it's not used over a certain period of time, when that person retires or leaves in whatever manner, that money has to be paid. And that money is supposed to be paid out at the rate of the existing rate of pay, at that particular time, even if it was accrued a certain period of time. So this is purely for the council to decide whether you want this or not, but for the most part, what it does, in essence, is truly puts the burden of resolving the compensatory time back on the departments, the ones that granted the comp time. They would have to exhaust their budget before coming to the county council.
Would there, if the first place that is used is from the wages line item, because obviously when there's a payout, the person is left.
Sure.
So wouldn't there need to be some language to kind of adjoin that kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of like a freeze element to that? Because technically, if the position was budgeted, and yes, if you were to adopt this would apply, but does there need to be a little stronger language to tie in the fact that that position cannot be filled until this is resolved?
There's no problem with that. What I'm saying is that if the council feels like that's necessary, I mean, you could definitely have just another sentence added on to section A. Just reinforcing the fact that in essence, this position cannot be filled, it is frozen until the compensatory time has been resolved.
Yeah, I would feel a bit more comfortable with that, because otherwise there's nothing to prevent that from just being filled quickly, and then there wouldn't be any money available to then you would still end up short, because then you're paying somebody and you've not paid out the comp time. So I'm just thinking something like that might be a little clearer to prevent any kind of loophole, if you will, or situation like that. I don't know if that, again, that's just a thought I have, so.
No problem having, redirected and add that, if there's any other things we're discussing, not any problem at all.
Any other comments, concerns?
I make a motion, we accept this ordinance with the alteration just spoke of.
Okay.
Or it's a resolution, I should say.
All right, motion on the floor by Nick,
I'll second that.
seconded by Anton to adopt this resolution with the edits specified. Any other discussion? Now I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0.
Sheila, if I could make one request, before this is published though, if you would allow me 24 hours to go ahead and make that addition, then I'll send that forward.
Any other business or questions on that? Okay, on the 14th, we met during the day and an evening meeting to make reductions in the budget. That amount was $640,430.27. At this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing on the advertising of that amount. Last minute.
So Sheila, we had a detailed spreadsheet, and that apparently was shared for department heads to double check, and there was, I think the courts, and it was not big dollars, there are a couple of small line items that kind of got switched around. Do we want to make sure we have that, everybody's on the same page with that? And,
I see several of those people here.
They weren't advertised though, they weren't.
Yeah,
Send
because,
that to the paper the next day, so we can add them, if we're gonna do additional appropriations tonight, we can add, and it was from Lynn Walters and the court, who wanted to add or clarify, so.
because one was lower than it should have, the other was higher than it should have, right? And again, not big dollars here, we're talking like $50, $75. Maybe to avoid any confusion with the advertisement, I would think we could just simply exclude those items specifically from tonight and make sure they're on a future request, just so we're not trying to second guess and, there you go, and miss something potentially, if that's okay with you all.
Specifically, which ones do we want to go by email?
Yeah, let me go back to.
Just sent that email.
Did you want it back?
No, I just thought.
I don't need it anymore, so, yeah.
And do you want to talk about the perpetuation fund, Sheila, and do you want to, you talked to the surveyor today and
Again, those, we have those, if you want to add them to it tonight, I did talk with Jim, he says we can put them on the next meeting. Him and Suzanne have already signed their affidavits giving permission for the perpetuation fund to be used as has previously been discussed.
would it be better to wait, Jim,
Oh,
or?
no, if you've got the actual signed affidavits, that was the key thing, so that you definitely needed those before you could proceed, but if you have those signed.
Okay.
That was just all copy for everybody, and then the 2 affidavits are on there.
There's a copy for everybody in here.
As part, for the actual ordinance. The 2 affidavits are the only ones I have.
The affidavits, Jim, I'm gonna hand to you to make sure that, good to go.
So these are the copies that
These
these
are
are signed
probably,
here, okay?
those are all certified.
Those might be Suzanne's part. Building,
I think,
One for Suzanne and one for Bill.
here's Bill's.
2 different, yeah.
So there's the one for Bill passed down. Those are the Suzanne ones, right? Yeah, there you go. I think it's one of each.
okay, that's for Bill, that's for Sylvia. Okay, Anton, do you have that pulled up, as far as the,
Yeah, I'm just going down the line here. Maybe we should go down the report.
okay?
And the first item is under the building department, which we're on now anyway. So we have $17,000 listed here as the amount of the cut. So the first question, Jim, is
That's for each of you.
can this be done effective the first of the year so that the full,
Oh, okay.
I sent you an email on this because it's 20% of the total salary, but we're already halfway through the year. So can we still utilize the, whatever the dollar amount for the 20% is for what's left in the year?
Okay, so, and I definitely will answer your question, but is this still public hearing for the cuts, or is that been closed?
Yeah. No, we're still in the public hearing for the cuts, and these are the reductions.
This is the third item on our cut.
Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't see this. So no, Dan, so I can actually give you a no. This is a new ordinance for this year. I cannot find anything that would suggest that we could be backdated. So for this year, it would have to start on that August 1st date. Now, I would recommend to the county council that you can consider this ordinance at your budget hearing for 2022, and it would be in effect for the entire year, the entire 100% of the year. But no, I don't
Right.
find anything that would allow us to backdate this back to January 1st of 2021.
right, that I understand, but the question is the dollar amount, the limit of the dollar amount. 20%, whatever dollar amount that equals, is that available to be deducted from August to the end of the year?
No, it would only be 20% of the actual existing salary.
Okay.
What's left?
What's left, so
Got
that's why I believe the building director consider salary from August 1, that those have to complement each other.
So it's gonna be prorated, the first 8, you know, we talked about some different dates, but the bottom line is, it will be on the salary that's remaining after we burn through the first 8 months.
Right, this would occur on August 1st, 2021 is when this could go into effect, this particular ordinance.
So the next question is we want to have a specific set of numbers for that line item and the other things that are being transferred.
Okay.
And we know that's gonna be less than 17,000, because 17 was our upper limit. So the next question is are we in a position to know exactly what we need to take the line items to in order to satisfy our action tonight?
I can only go by what the building director said her salary was, which was, for that time period, would be $8,123.02. 20% of her salary would be $3,384.59. So that was the information that was forwarded to me.
And that's just the wage part.
Probably the wage part.
That's not FICA or
I
those
don't,
part.
I'm not sure.
And are those, okay, are those also supposed to be figured along with the 20% or?
They would be allowable, because the FICA would be part of the salary, so yes, those would be allowable expenses, but those have not been integrated into this.
Got it. And we know that if 3384 is kind of that pro rata figure, then the math on that would be those numbers. Okay.
Okay.
And then the rest are all non-wage related moves from the general fund part of the budget to the straight up building fund part of the.
Except for 17,000.
Right. So something for the council to consider, if it's allowable, is to simply, on that particular reduction, refer to the report that was provided and allow those adjustments to be made as presented. That'd probably be the best we can do on that, right? Is that, Jim, do you think that'd be sufficient from a
Well,
action to cut?
no, yeah, for building department, and making it where there's no question, it's not long to be in the general fund, yes. For making the FICA changes, you will need a new ordinance and you will need new affidavits.
Yep. All right, and then the next items are the circuit court, the $50 and the $25. Those we probably should just exclude from action tonight because of the dollar amounts maybe being switched around there. But the rest were all matched up properly. Okay. Okay. On clerk, we were talking about the position that's open. We don't want to eliminate or vacate the election position, because that's the position that we have to fill. But that's the one that's kind of open at the moment. So the question is there anything that prevents us from going ahead and utilizing the funds that are budgeted in the election budget to pay the salary for one of the other positions, and it doesn't matter which one, but utilize those resources out of that separate fund to cover it, so that you can essentially go ahead and realize the cut part on the general fund end of things, if that makes sense.
We're talking about because one of them's funded partially by the.
Right, because technically, election registration is its own levy, and that position that's currently vacant is there. And that's not the one where we wanna reduce, but in order to realize the savings on the general fund, you'd have to move one of the other positions over and pay from it. And so is there anything that prevents us from utilizing that to pay for that? I don't have an answer to that question. That's why I'm asking maybe Jim if there's any legal restriction.
No, I apologize, I would not, be able to give you an answer that would be satisfactory on that right now.
Okay.
I can look into it, absolutely, but not off the top of my head.
Yeah, and the only reason why I bring that up, and I'm gonna use Bridge Fund as example, we pay an employee part out of Bridge, but there's certain rules that say, the Bridge Fund can only be used for X, Y, Z. So I'm wondering if there's any similar limitation or to the election registration fund that would prevent us from going ahead and getting an employee over there, even though that may not be the employee ultimately that would be in that role, but going ahead and getting that move made, we'd want to be sensitive to that. So.
Keep in mind, Anton, student voice, that we're gonna do 50-50, remember that.
Okay.
You clear on that?
Yeah, so do we want to take, I guess are we in a position to take action on that? Because it would kind of require you to move that out of the general if you're going to actually have a reduction.
Registration fund, we're gonna pay the employee 50% out of the perpetuation fund.
And, we clearly want to give you, I think we were talking about August 1st, but, what is an ample amount of time for you, with a cut to personnel to give them a softer reading, and also you're clearly down already and you're a new person and new department head. What does that look like to you?
About August 15th.
Thought that was an option today, Jim. Does that sound?
Yeah, I mean, as far as, planning ahead and looking at something that's substantive, I mean, August 15th does make sense.
I just want to thank the clerk for working through this with us. I know we've got some details to nail down. It's obviously been since we last met. We've seen a lot of people trying to do what they can for the county, and we appreciate that. So, as far as the 50-50, we could realize the 50% out of the general fund immediately, correct? And is the other one, does there need to be some ordinance work as far as using the additional 50%?
So, Leslie, let's make sure she's good with this. So you're proposing that we still utilize a split of some sort for one of the positions you have. And you're willing to do a 50-50 split instead of the current 79.1 or whatever it is, right?
Whatever you say, yes.
Okay. So we'd be eliminating the vacant position, which is not the election, but a vacant in general. And then you're still doing a split on one of the other ones? Or,
Just one employee will get 50 out of the perpetuation fund.
okay, so you wouldn't be eliminating a position from your office in aggregate? Again, not election, but in aggregate.
That's what you want me to do, Anton. I will take care of it.
Okay. Because currently the amount, and I'm just discussion for clarity, the amount that's on this sheet for reduction is elimination of a position. It's not a 50-50 split on another. So if we're gonna take action on this tonight, we wanna make sure that we're on the same page, that it is reduction of one position in the clerk's office. And then whether she, yeah, go ahead, yeah.
If you take away one employee in the clerk's office, then the 50-50 split is useless.
Well, that's true, that's what I'm thinking, because you wouldn't necessarily have to do that, because you might still have resources you could utilize elsewhere if need be. So we'd want to be clear on the total.
I mean, if you can take money from the election office, I'm still doing that job. I haven't put anybody in there. Frankly, I get laughed at when I ask someone, but that's okay. So no, I'm still doing that job.
But that's not a permanent solution for you.
I didn't say it was.
Just at the moment.
I'm thinking maybe just a part-time person in that position.
And you could use your perpetual fund is there any way to use it?
I don't know. I haven't made any data on it. A straightforward answer back. If I could use the clerk's perpetuation fund to pay for a part-time person in the election office. We'll have to check into that. I don't know. But I mean, a part-time person in the election office, probably not. They wouldn't get benefits, so that's gonna save money.
Yeah. Well, the only real technical unknown is the use of the money from the election for a non-election, deputy.
Probably won't work,
So that's the unknown at the moment.
probably won't work.
That would require some research. And Jim mentioned he can, but of course not tonight. But that's what's on the sheet, is just an elimination straight up of a position, no other change to any other aspects like the split or anything like that.
So is that gonna be straight across for every employee, every department, or just me?
Well, you know, I'll tell you, that's a good question. And certainly, I asked the auditor to provide a listing, an organizational chart, in essence, for tonight, for the rest of the council, you know, to digest. And I will tell you, I kind of wanted to get through this first, but Jim, you know, what do you see as an adequate starting point on this?
I know you're right in the middle of a public hearing, and I would apologize to council, we would, in order to give you an accurate answer, it's gonna take me a few minutes to kind of go through this. I didn't know if you want me to do that now, I'll be happy to do that, but there are just some real numbers, I think, that the council would need to kind of take a look at.
Let's just do, Leslie Ann, clearly, I would just reply that, the number of, unless we can find a way to miracle this situation in some way, or, you know, we find something, I would say that's certainly on the table, you know. General reductions in the general fund as far as.
Straight across the board.
Again, I don't want to say things that it takes a 7-member board to deliver on, but I would say that that's certainly an option at this point.
Well, I just wanna throw out there that since June of 2018, the clerk's office has brought in over $700,000 to the county. And a small, very small portion of that goes to the perpetuation fund. I mean, I'm talking a couple $100 here and there. So I mean, yes, that's our job, but we still bring in quite a bit of money.
Sure.
And currently,
We do bring in money, unlike some other offices that don't bring in money. And they're still getting good budgets.
But based on past conversation, because I want to make sure that we adequately address your position. I know you've been in contact with some other council members too, discussing it. You know, you're clearly no one wants to be in a situation that you're in with the election person and having that vacancy. But this is still something that, you know, we just gotta figure out the cost share, I assume, on the 50/50. And would you say that you're opposed to a 100% reduction as far as the general funded position?
Paying 100% out of the perpetuation fund. I'm looking at my council here. You guys got yours, I got mine.
Okay, I don't, who is our council? Oh,
We won't have enough money in there to do the rest of this year and next year. It won't be enough.
yeah, you wouldn't want to do that much out of perpetuation because it doesn't bring in.
No, it
That much.
doesn't. I mean,
Yeah, and I really think we shouldn't touch the way it is now, to be honest. Leave it at the current split, the 79 whatever and the split. But the real question is there's a position that's vacant, and that's the opportunity we have at the moment to reduce without having an unemployed individual. And that would be the amount of money to save. What was that?
that scenario is not working. I'm not gonna talk about that in the public meeting.
So but, you know, that's the point of why we're having the hearing. We need to figure out the pros and the cons of the decision. So you would recommend we don't cut the position?
Like you said, I just wanna know what the deadline is. I wanna know what the deadline is on a decision on where you guys are taking this. Is it straight across the board? Is it just my office? Because there's 5 up there. What's the bottom line?
All right, so let me jump in here with that. The deadline, of course, I think we established what a deadline would be for the position. As far as this, we're in a public hearing right now, to address every one of these cuts. So now, as far as your question about the road ahead and who and what, when, all that, as soon as the public hearing's closed, Jim's gonna give us an update of kinda where we're at and what some of his projections are, and then we'll delve into that. So I'm gonna have to tell you, I guess I hope this conversation doesn't hinge on that question necessarily, but, he's got some numbers to throw at us here.
So Anton, if you think the possibility to take election money over, then really there's not even a problem because I'm still doing the election job, correct?
Yeah.
If you can use the election money to cover, even though you don't have a designated person yet, utilizing that line item in that budget to pay for one of your deputies, then when you make the cut then on the general side, then the general fund is where the advantage is, where the money is saved, which is kind of the goal. Because election registration doesn't need to be cut. That's fine, and it needs to be filled. It's just weird because of the split. If election was filled right now, and you had one of the other positions that was open, then it'd be a lot simpler just to.
I'm not a simple person.
Yeah, we try to make it as simple as possible, but it is complicated. But that would make it a little easier to kind of grasp, but in this case, the actual vacant position is the election position, and that's not the one you want to cut, obviously. So that's kind of the logistics we're trying to grapple with here, is figure out if you can go ahead and pay someone out of that election budget so that that part's good and the money is utilized, and then you have free up the general part.
What about, one of your employees that's in there now,
No,
they're not,
Is there a possibility? Go ahead.
I just want to say, if you are going to take one, what you're suggesting is take one of her employees in her clerk's office and put in that position, but if that's not the one that is, good for that
True.
election position, then you're stuck. And you don't really want to do that.
Yeah, you're right.
So you may be running next year, you want somebody that's hates me because I put him down there to lose your paperwork.
Yeah, that's true.
And
We
it's a
wouldn't
very
want that, would
important
we?
position. It's not one that you just want to stick somebody in there.
Yeah, well, and so that was my point earlier, is that it wouldn't be the person you'd necessarily designate that's gonna be specifically for that and that you'd keep there, but you're utilizing the money in the fund to pay for one of
You
the
see
other.
money, I know the person now.
Right.
That's why maybe we should have sat down and said, okay, what's your thought, what this is thought? And we could have explained a few things. I don't know.
Okay, let me ask you this, so what if we took action tonight on a 50% reduction, and then we work out the details, and we see where the other 50% comes from? Would that be adequate?
That's an alternative, but it doesn't address the cut that's been advertised that we have to take action on. So are we taking it off the list
Well, I would think we would take 50%.
and then looking at it later?
I don't think that was adequately discussed, myself, before it was put on this list. Because, after it was already put on here, we threw it around at that morning meeting, but it wasn't really, I don't feel like it was adequately discussed to be able to, eliminate a position.
So maybe then-
We did all vote for the advertisement, though.
Yeah, but, I don't like, it was ran over, and I don't think that eliminating the position right there, I mean, I don't feel like that was adequate, I mean, in my opinion.
Well, and it's just an advertisement and this is the point where we're discussing it, so there's no harm in doing that. But if it's something that we wanna pass on, then we just have to eliminate it off of the record here and give it a time to discuss further. That'd be the other option.
I think, Anton, if we don't, we could be here for some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready to,
So why don't we, unless there is any objection, why don't we take the clerk's, those 3 line items, regular wages, perf, FICA, and let me double check the next page here. Yeah, those 3 lines, and then eliminate them from the current hearing.
Do we need a motion?
yes.
Make a motion to the statement that Anton just made.
Okay.
Second.
Seconded by Polly. Motion was by Nick. We'll get a new total here in a moment. To subtract those 3 items off this. And, don't thank me yet, cause I think we're gonna do some discussing, but tonight. So any further discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0. Okay. Well, let's move on.
So vehicle rotation, some of those were all good. So on extension, we actually have a negative number there for one of those lines because we're actually needing to, if you remember, we were adding back in the work study cost because it has to be budgeted as part of the general fund in order to get the reimbursement of 50% for those positions. So the net difference would involve increasing the part-time line item by $5,300, and that's in our bottom line number. But being it's a budget reduction hearing, Sheila, are we able to, how should we handle that?
As long as they do not go over the amounts that are advertised, you can make the adjustments. It's what I enter, and if you approve to.
Less is okay, more is not.
So we could, but can we actually increase?
Cannot.
Okay, that's the question.
It's not been advertised.
So I'm gonna make a note. We should probably postpone the 12,500 part-time, that negative 5,303, and re-advertise for, and that wouldn't be a budget reduction, but it,
Appropriation.
okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and make a motion that we withdraw the extension part-time negative 5,303 from the hearing.
All right, motion on the floor by Anton to withdraw the part-time pension, 12,500, for the amount of $5,303. Here, second?
Second.
Seconded by Polly.
What was the conflict?
We're getting to the discussion right now, so go ahead.
Well, I just want to know what the conflict was.
So as part of the work on the extension budget, one of the problems that was identified earlier by Jim and the department was that there's a work study fund that was in the red because the way we had it set up previously is we didn't budget for the seasonal part-time help in the regular general fund part of the budget. And it has to be budgeted there in order to qualify for the 50% reimbursement through that program. And so the way to fix that is to budget the correct amount, the aggregate total, the gross amount, in that line item to be sufficient to cover that. So that's why it's a negative number, because we wouldn't be reducing the line item, we'd be increasing the line item.
So you're saying we'll address this outside?
We'll have to, because we can't increase a line item in the hearing. So the motion is to pull it, and then we'll take the appropriate action to address it separately.
Thank you, John, I appreciate that.
Okay. A motion on the floor by Anton, seconded by Polly. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0.
All right, and then the, under sheriff, regular wages, the move of jailer positions to Fund 1233. We'll need to do, well, this will be another one where we can make the cut, but is there another set of rules or actions we have to take in order to make sure we add that line item in that Fund 1233?
Additional appropriation.
Okay.
I apologize, what was that answer? What did she say?
So this is on,
She said an additional appropriation.
yeah, this is on page 3, halfway down, sheriff, regular wages. It's one thing to make the cut because we're moving them, but then on the place where we're moving them, we'll need to have some kind of an appropriation to offset that. So the question is can we, I guess we'll have to put it on our to-do list to advertise at our next meeting, but does that prevent us from going ahead and doing it? Because we kind of want to get the cut and affect it, but.
It's my understanding you can go ahead and get cut, get this rolling.
Okay, as long as we're good with that, okay.
Is that correct, Sheila? I mean, I don't speak out of turn, that's what
You're
I'm
good.
talking about.
That'll help a lot.
So yeah, so on the to-do list, we'll need to add to that, doing an additional appropriation advertisement out of Fund 1233 for that same amount. And then the associated FICA and PERF that are below that. Okay.
And Tom, if I may just state the obvious, though, it does have to be that 20% is the hard.
Yes, and that's a good point. So the dollar amounts that are specific to those jailer positions, plus the FICA and the PERF, are about a 1,000 or 2,000 under the 20% for that. So.
And if I may just on that on 1233, maybe it's an oversight on my part, but I didn't see any appropriations for contract services and maintenance. I do think just for the thing, looking for the to-do, is to have an official appropriation for one for maintenance and then one for contract services out of 1233. I think that would be easier to follow the expenses.
Is there a specific dollar amount that you would suggest?
Well, I think that it probably has a lot to do with your discussion, Anton, if we're going to look at doing the maintenance of the jail out of that fund, like on a regular basis, that's gonna be a much higher number. But I think maybe by putting on the list, discussions with the sheriff, discussions with the liaison, and get some actual numbers for that.
Okay.
Contract service will be easy to figure pretty quick.
But
Yeah, me and Merle get together about the maintenance. That, and get a dollar amount for you.
All right,
If you don't spend it, it's no big deal, I mean, I can lose the money.
Right, I mean, we really don't have the intent to spend unless we have to, but, okay, all right.
Isn't $40,000 already, that was one of the actions that you guys had already voted on, was to put that 40,000 in maintenance. So, I mean, there's already a maintenance line item.
Have you, is that line item already been, got created today or the other day, wasn't it?
Yes, that 40,000.
That was from our last meeting.
Yeah, so you already have a line item for maintenance. For contract services.
All righty. And then, on the last page, under coroner, we have something similar to the seasonal part-time we talked about. In extension where we have a negative number, because in the discussions we had, we wound up determining that there wasn't a line item in the coroner's budget for copy machine. So I'm gonna make a motion that we exclude that as well and then re-advertise, the appropriate way for that part.
I second that.
Okay, motion on the floor by Anton, seconded by Nick to exclude 34300 copy machine and to be picked up at a later date. Any further discussion? Call for a vote, all those in favor? Okay, 6-0.
And then, it doesn't really affect the current entry for probation at 44,000. Donna, so you mentioned that was a position that you were willing to cut there. But then just today, you also mentioned, there's also these other, but it's too late because we've not advertised for those. So we need to put those on a future thing as well, which would be the percentage based on the number of officers in aggregate for the department. Is that right?
Right. Only APOs, there's no assistant chief, so that
Okay.
goes away,
Okay.
and my salary is less than 2.
And so those dollar amounts, and I know you put some together, those are just the amounts of the salary part, right?
Correct.
It didn't include the FICA or the. So we have time because we're not gonna do that part today. But on the to-do list for advertisement, we'll need to make sure we firm up those exact numbers from the appropriate budgets. And really it's your position and then Paula's. And those two, if I'm not mistaken, are paid out of.
I was at a general and I'm out of like 2 or 3.
Got it. So we'll have to just figure out like the net impact on the general fund part.
Right, because the others, like I'm getting in like money from pre-trial.
Right.
I mean, they're all kind of different funds, I'm just trying to help reimburse back.
Yeah, so talk's really cheap right now, but you literally got put a lot of skin in the game and it's appreciated, Donna.
I'm sorry.
I said, you've literally got skin in this game, that's affecting you and others and.
Yeah, like the whole department has to take on more work, policies, money, we have a person that lost a job, I lost something, we've taken it.
I appreciate that.
Because that's what I thought we were supposed to do, I thought we were supposed to try to come up with what we could do, so
Yeah.
that's what we did.
Okay, so that goes through, because I know there are just some of those technical, and again, these were all brought up because they are complicated and there are some nuances. So that's the point of the hearing today. But I think that takes care of the line items that needed some kind of special attention.
Do we have a new
discussion.
total?
I don't have a new total on it.
Should we get one? Or just go item by item, except for the exceptions?
What's your number that you got there? That's probably better than anybody else.
370.
611,
If I added back in the ones that we had,
the negatives
yeah,
and
the
all that
negative
stuff, okay.
ones, subtracted, the clerk.
Reduction in that.
Kenny comes from.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think the grand total
Comes from Kentucky.
is, we'll figure that, but for purposes of the individual transactions, as long as the dollar amounts are correct, and those are actually processed according to our vote, that's what really matters, and then we can have a final report or updated for the next time we meet. This particular spreadsheet, it's not, you notice on the far right, it has completed. So what I would think will happen, Sheila, is that once she finishes her work on her action, there'll be dollar amounts in the completed column that'll be able to be totaled up. And then we'll know at our next meeting kind of what the actual figure is. Because we want to make sure we, in our wording for the reduction, that we specifically mention the building part is, and Suzanne's left, but we particularly want to mention reference to the report that was provided and the exact figures per that recommendation, because that's what the action will be taken on there for, so.
Okay, so bottom line is, other than the edits we just made, does anyone, if you want to make a motion at this time to accept the reductions that have been stated, we can consider those.
I make a motion that we accept the
Or
reduction.
extension.
Or so there is no final figure, but due to all the conversation. Yes, I make that in a motion.
On the floor by Nick to accept the reductions as stated unless we have edits out on those. Is that okay with you, Nick?
That's fine, yes.
Here's a second.
And that includes the reference to the building department and the exact numbers that they've come up with.
That's included.
All right, well, I'll second that.
Seconded by Anton. Further discussion? Hearing nothing else, will call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0. All right, at this time, is there any public comment or any other department head comment on this matter before I close the public hearing? All right, I'm gonna close public hearing, Madam Auditor. Okay, so
the advertisement for the meeting did indicate the following additional appropriations and budget reductions. So based on that, Sheila, could we not take action on the coroner and the extension ones that were in here?
The paper, were there three? Were those-
Yeah, there was that extension and then the coroner. And, but, let me check one other thing here.
the only thing is, with Jim's update and stuff, there could be other things that we
Yeah.
want, so.
At this point, we're gonna have other anyway,
Yeah.
so, okay. And then plus the jail fund is not listed anyway, so we know we can't proceed. Let me check one other thing here. Got it.
We got Peter's consulting next, and then we'll get back into,
Well, we do have a separate specific appropriations concerning the sheriff's payment of the sheriff's pension fund and then appropriation from the 3 funds we were gonna use to pay for that. So that would probably be the next hearing on the agenda that we'd have to have, right?
Was that advertised for tonight?
Yes.
I don't.
There's a few copies. On the very bottom in the additional appropriations.
What was the dollar amount, Sheriff, on the, what was left in the line item in the budget for the sheriff's pension
Yes.
payment? Wasn't there
That's in the cash balance,
wasn't there a small amount left that was not
$14,453.
14,400 and,
53, that's left in the cash balance.
that's in that particular line item? Because originally we were gonna go ahead and use that, what's left there, and then the rest of it was going to be split out from 3 different funds, the edit, civil processing, and the tax warrant. Okay.
So I need to go ahead and open the meeting.
Okay.
So we need to go ahead and open the meeting on this.
It was part of the
Okay.
public hearing.
Well, I closed this, so I'm gonna open public hearing on this portion. All right, I think we've only got 3 copies here. You can see the additional appropriations. And I'll be honest with you, I should have brought my glasses. Yes. Does anybody got good eyes that they can read through?
Yeah, the additional appropriations are advertised in the amounts of $180,249.48 out of Lit Edit Fund 7332. And that would go towards Sheriff's Pension Fund in the General Fund, line item 12200.005. The other appropriation was out of the Civil Processing Fees, Fund 5501, in the amount of $42,629.54, also to the Sheriff's Pension Fund, General Fund 1000, line item 12200.005. And the final part to that was an appropriation out of Tax Warrant Fund 4932 in the amount of $29,008.98 to the Sheriff Pension Fund, Fund 1000, line item 12200.005.
Thank you for that. Sheriff and Sheila, are you guys good with
Yes, sir.
those?
That's adequate, yes,
I make a motion that we need to accept what was stated by Anton in that statement.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Motion on the floor, by Nick, seconded by Anton for the, Lit Edit Fund, civil processing fees and tax warrant, monies, and you have record of those, Sheila? Okay. Any further questions, comments, concerns on this?
So just another comment, just for folks that don't necessarily know what we're doing here, is that we're able to cover and bring current the sheriff's pension fund payment. Because the line item for this year wound up being exhausted to pay last year's payment.
sir.
So the sheriff was behind now.
And he's not at all sensitive about this matter either, are you?
Yeah, normally, no. But anyway, and normally the payment would be made in December, so technically we're making this one a little earlier, which might be helpful from an interest standpoint. But might as well get it off the list.
It's good for this year.
So,
All right.
The amount might be lessened a little bit because we did get some monies. There's $31,094.77 in the fund. So whatever is not in
Oh,
the
instead of the
40
29,
Right,
Okay.
so whatever is not in the 4015, we'll take
I think we
that,
should favor the edit
right.
fund. Is that okay?
Yeah, I would say
The
that,
motion,
Yeah, I am fine.
based on what she shared?
so we're gonna amend the motion with that, okay?
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Call for a vote, all those in favor? 6-0.
Along the line of, are you closing the hearing?
Not yet.
Okay. Just in case. Well, the only thing that I wanna bring up on the earlier action we took, we did advertise a reduction on the storage units loan in the edit fund. And that does save $81,000 there, which we can later then use to move more general costs into edit, which is good, and we haven't done that yet, so there's another 80,000 we can save. But, if we're actually paying off the loan from Fund 4015 and 4906 as stated, I don't see that advertised, so do we still need to put that, is that still a to-do item?
It's advertised.
Oh, okay, so that counts, because we didn't actually have a dollar amount that we adopted for payment of the loan though. Was that in the advertisement?
81,298 was what would be coming from him to pay off the loan at 28,000.
Well, that's,
There was the difference
the 81
from
though,
the 4906.
the 81,000 is not the loan amount though, the 81 is the line item in edit.
Your total amount payoff was $120,185.
Right. So my concern is we've not actually took the action to do that part. What we did in our earlier motion was we reduced the edit budget by that line item to 0, because we're not gonna make a payment anymore. But we still probably need to take action on appropriating the money from those two funds to pay the loan. Because I don't see where we've done that yet.
You're gonna have to appropriate the money of the $28,000 that you have.
Right.
In that, yeah.
Plus the 81 or 82,000 on the jail housing
Correct.
pay off. your-
Well, and it'd be the, what was that loan balance again, Sheriff?
$120,185.
What's the
Minus 20.
28,000 or whatever, what fund is?
That was from the storage units?
Yeah, I just wanna know what it was
But
called.
there's more in there.
How much are we at now on that?
This had 28,000, but it's up to 31,094.77.
Okay.
So it's a couple thousand.
And then wasn't there a claim for payment to Vortex that needed to be covered?
If
Or is
there's
that-
any claims, it was processed in the last claim process. I have not seen any other since the last claim process.
Okay, so we're square though on that.
Right now, yeah.
Okay. So,
I'm sure there'll be another bill coming that
Oh,
we haven't
yes.
seen yet.
okay. And those are typically paid from the storage unit
Yes.
fund? So I'm wondering if we should leave it at the 28 just to give some cushion because of
Right,
those
sure.
bills? Okay. So for our to-do list, would you agree then that we need to essentially advertise 28,000 from the storage unit fund, which
4015.
4015, and then whatever the balance to pay the loan off, which it would be like 90-some thousand. The 81 is the line item in edit, that's not the same number. But the difference would be probably 91 or 92,000 out of the other fund, and then have a hearing on that to actually pay the loan off. So
So do you wanna,
I'm gonna make a motion that we advertise or authorize the auditor to advertise accordingly out of those two funds.
is there an up to amount or?
Up to 28,000 out of the storage unit fund, and then the balance of the loan out of, the jail housing.
Thank you. Can I hear a second? Burl. You good?
Yeah, I'm good, yes.
So Burl seconded that. and that was up to 28,000 out of the storage unit fund, and the balance out of edit, correct?
No,
Okay.
jailhouse.
GLG housing, yeah, gotcha. Okay, any further discussion? Call for a vote. All those in favor? 6-0.
Can I interrupt just a
Yes, sir.
second? Is that air conditioning unit on running behind you?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanna make sure it was
Cooler
turned
coming
off.
out of it.
It was turned off Friday because it was so cold in here, Bob couldn't stand it, so we should.
Is anybody cold?
It's super hot in here, so
Okay.
just making sure that you want to, make sure it's working.
Pretty good.
All right, so, and again, forgive me for throwing these things at you, but there's a lot of moving parts, and we want to make sure we get them as many off our list as quickly as possible. So I appreciate the patience as we kind of work through these.
Is there anything else in this public hearing, Madam Auditor, we need to address? Anything from anyone? Yes, Jeff.
Jeff Morris, Morgan Township. So can somebody tell me, this is overwhelming, and I see you guys have got an overwhelming job, so it's not, but, can somebody tell me this last item, as an example, not picking on the item, but as an example, we talked about getting rid of funds out of lit, using funds out of lit to pay the pension. Okay, so the lit balance could decrease. Then we talked about paying off a loan, okay? And we talked about using $28,000 out of one fund and something out of the jailhouse fund. Can somebody please tell me what the appropriation is and how the fund for the jailhouse gets populated? It doesn't get populated from lit or general, does it? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out whether it's making sense in my head, which is tough to do.
Yeah.
So the revenue source for jail housing is the reimbursement or payment, we get from the state for housing inmates in our jail that meet a certain classification or requirement for that particular reimbursement.
And you can use that money however you want.
It is fairly flexible in what we can use it for. The sheriff can touch on some of the specifics there.
Yeah, I mean, I can use jail housing money for anything that's related to, the jail project, upkeep, any of the buildings that house my officers, my detectives. The storage unit property was bought for the sole purpose of building a new facility. So they told me I could utilize that money to buy the property because that's the purpose of that property.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff.
It feels like it's.
Yeah. Yeah, the other, then on the back end of that discussion, the reason why we're doing what we did is because we have an opportunity to eliminate an $81,000 expense out of the edit fund, which can be used for general fund that we can move to that.
Okay.
So we're freeing up capacity in the edit budget, which balanced anyway, but we've freed up capacity that can be used for other things that we need to use.
Okay, general.
Because I heard edit and I.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're already.
And so the last thing on the, some of those to-do items we talked about earlier, Sheila, do you need motions on advertising for, the coroner's part, the part-time out of extension? I mean, do you need?
You named them, so I'll list them when you made motions already on that, so I can add.
Because I don't think there's any objection to that, but, okay, just as long as we don't lose those or we don't want to sidestep anything there, so, okay.
Anything else for we move on? Okay. Mr. Attorney. Peter's consultant,
Sure, okay. Council, if you don't mind, and with your permission, if I could speak kind of candidly on where the economic situation is, that's acceptable. And then if you would ask if the representative of Peters Municipal Consulting could be here, this is one of the partners. Peters Municipal Consulting has worked for you in the past on 2 different projects. They already have a letter of engagement and would be here to let them explain as far as what they can do and looking at the future and on some decisions. So I asked permission to kind of speak candidly. There's nothing tonight where you can raise taxes. There's nothing tonight that would allow, hey, we're just gonna go take X amount of number from lead, X amount from riverboat, and just put it in general and resolve it. However, those topics it is that time to be discussed. So as I've been doing, you've asked me since January to look at the financial fund ledgers and have a financial accounting. As of June 22nd, the general fund was in the red. I did update that tonight with the auditor had presented an update. The general fund is in the black, is in the red again. That is the 17th out of 18 months consecutively. So for the past year and a half, there was a single time that the general fund was in the black. It was approximately $25,000, and that was a result of the settlement that came in May, and that was 1.97 million. 1.9 million came in, and by the end of the day, it was $25,000 after the balances were done. At this present time, the general fund is in the red, as I've just indicated. There's a total of 13 funds that are in the red right now in Owen County. That total amount is $1.2 million. Looking at the projections, looking at what's next as far as the actual numbers. This is just historical, and it's just based on a lot of fluctuations, but I did look at the receipts, the amount of money that was receipted in to your general fund in January, February, March, April settlement, and June as of the 22nd. I subtracted the settlement because you're obviously not going to get $1.9 million each month. These fluctuate so much. What I mean by that, in January there was 256,000 that came in February it was 52. But looking at an average of the first 6 months, roughly you had the average of about 273,000 coming in. That is not enough to square the general fund month by month. It simply won't work. As of today, January 28th, the actual expenditures from the general fund as of 28th were 543,000. Now, so far, in June, it's almost 100,000 more than that average, but even there, as of today, it's $145,000 in the red. That will only reduce itself by the transfer of money to make up the deficit. You will run out at some point. There's not enough in your collective fund balance that will allow either not significant cuts or the consideration of a tax increase in 2022. Probably, and I'll let others that are experts can go, you could probably manipulate, but what I'm saying is you have right now approximately 850,000 in lead at 733.32. Looking at rough estimates in my head, it sounds like about 100,000, some came in, some went out. You probably get 700,000. If you took all of that 700,000, which I'm not saying you do, just for example, that extinguishes all the amount. There's still money coming in, but your cash reserve. Same thing with Riverboat. There's more payments coming in. There's revenue coming in. But when you make these moves, I respectfully would consider that they may not be replenished at the same amount of rate. So one thing that I respectfully think that has to be debated tonight would be is the Owen County Council considering a tax increase in 2022? If it is, it would require bond counsel, obviously, and the Peters consultant, which is already your term of engagement, which would look and it could compare the rates. It would encompass looking at the possibility of rates coming in. It would include the jail project. Those funds, theoretically, please understand, I'm gonna emphasize that, right now it could probably come from the jail lit, but if you don't go along with the jail project, you need to have at least that money back in reserve, because it may have to be subtracted out. It just depends on what to do. You're talking about in the range of probably approximately $25,000 in fees. From one consultant, probably looking at, I think respectively, probably $10,000 in the specific legal fees that you're going to need from Barnes and Thornburg, which has your term of engagement for that. You've had the Crow report. This is just looked at that. That is one of their recommendations, is looking at the possibility of a tax increase. Now, when I say that, I'm trying to emphasize a number of things. This is not meaning it will occur. It is not meaning that the public would not be heard on that matter. What I'm saying tonight is there's deadlines, there has to be notice, there has to be public hearings. If you are considering and wanting to have a tax in place by January 1st, the window is rapidly closing. And the amount of work that needs to be done, reconciled, and then information brought back to you as the county council on what rate, what projected revenues, what you would expect. That's one. Number two is on the cuts. Obviously, there was a significant amount of work done tonight. I believe rough estimate was about 6 hours morning hearings, 3 hours in the afternoon. It's approaching 8:30 now. But there has to be a consideration, and I'm not asking, nor do I have any authority to ask, and I'm not demanding that you would say, I want A, B, and C, that person laid off. But there needs to be, respectfully, council, an answer today is, in looking at your cost cutting, is the reduction of personnel on that agenda. This is something that, again, Peters Consulting can kind of look if you're going to, reduce. And it's not even just simply yay or nay. There would need to be some type of guidance. The number, are you looking to reduce personnel, whether by a specific number of 10 or 15? Are you looking to reduce personnel by 20%? Are you looking to reduce personnel by 0? If you are, then it guides people that are trying to provide the information, then where else it has to be looked at. You have roughly in the range, in Riverboat and Lit Edit, those are the two more common that would be. Right now, you're showing roughly about 340,000 in Riverboat. And then in 7332, it's 850, but there's been some changes that were made. Then let me pull this up. But it's showing 850, 419, at 100. If just not, and it can't be done, it's got to be appropriated, but do you have an amount, an area of your thinking of this is an amount, if we can, that we want to transfer? I think all three of those questions really require some type of guidance respectfully from the council in order for everyone to take a look. I do, and I'm not a financial consultant, nor everything that I say. I don't see a pathway that exists of merely what I would just call the status quo, that the amount is receded in, that the red fund increases to grow each and every month, with the idea, and I'm not saying you're even considering this is just me, I don't want anyone to get misconstrued, but waiting till about November, it's 1.4 million, 1.8 million, whatever that number is, take December, and then worry about it in 2022. I respectfully would submit that's not a viable option anymore. It's a problem that you have absolutely worked at, you're absolutely addressing. But I think in your discussion, everyone that is here, are you gonna consider a tax increase? Are you going to consider actual layoffs? If so, is there a percent, is there a number that you have in mind? And if you're looking to transfer where it can be appropriated in order for Peter to control, in order for me to be the assistant, what is that money? What specifically do you have in mind? Your projections, again, just based on historical data, you can expect probably somewhere in the range of about 250,000 of coming in, could be a little bit more. Your non-general fund, I don't see any way, what I'm saying is that the EMS, the highway department, 911, building, it's all tax money, I'm not trying to be disrespectful there, but it's not funded out of the 1,000. I don't see any way, as they're working through their budgets, there's any pathway, if they're having a shortfall, that they could come and ask, but we need more appropriations. I say this respectfully, I know that the floods, the roads have come in, the damage to the roads are more than what is now in the existing budget. I don't know that there's any way, council, at least what we're looking at right now, that the highway can come in and say, I need X amount of money, it's gonna be out of their budgets. Those are they're pretty short margins, but they do have the same type of average. Just to give you an idea, these are just rough ideas, but based on the historical average of the past 6 months, and some of these are consistent, for the highway, they would expect about 441,000 to enter in local road and street, about 600,000 in restricted, 767,000 in the MVH. That's what he's got. Those could change, the gas amounts could come a little bit, but I think based on looking at the history, that's about how much money the highway department has to finish off. Now for 911 dispatch, it's actually much more consistent. 1222 gets $24,008 every month. 1235 gets $35,209.58. Those are constant numbers. So for Kathleen, in working out her budget, I mean, she's got a real good idea of what that's coming. The sheriff's jail correctional, it's been $70,419.17. It's been that way every month. If that continues, the sheriff would expect to have $350,095.85. He has agreed, you did a motion, 20% of that money is gonna go for jail personnel. Your jail, perhaps the sheriff has said in the past, it's not in quite the shape he would like it to be. It requires some maintenance. We got $352,000 that's coming in. There's $318,000 in it. Okay, that's about $670,000 in that. Now, you allow me to talk. So that's better to say. Garmon came in. RQAW looked at the jail project. $617,000, I think, for any individual is a significant, huge amount of money for one individual. The jail project, I believe, Sheriff, this correct, was over $20 million.
That's correct.
For the recommendation. $616,000 is not going to start a $20 to $24 million jail project. I can say this with pretty much confidence, there will be no jail built in 2021. There's no money, one, and two, Garmon and RQAW went to great lengths and explained to all of the supply chain, it's not even a possibility, respect the council, if you had $24 million sitting right there. It's impossible on it. You might be looking, depending on a number of things, I think Garmon, and I'm quoting them from my memory, and then RQAW didn't even see really much of a possibility of actually building in 2023. You're gonna use some of this money, it's gonna have to go to the maintenance, and it was made crystal clear at every single presentation, if there was going to be a consideration of a new jail project, a second tax was absolutely required. That's all it is. That is also what Peters Consulting can assist with, and the Barnes Authority. So in summary, you are in the 17th of 18th month in the red. It will not correct itself. That is not a possibility. You have reasonable historical data to go. You have a limited amount of funds. So I'm suggesting whatever you're meeting, you want to pursue any of these topics or not. Are you considering a tax increase? Are you considering personnel layoffs? If so, what would be the amount? If you're considering transfers, particularly from a lit edit or riverboat, do you have amounts in mind aimed at what specifically at the general fund? And then there is a representative for Peters Consulting here that can answer the question.
And, hi. With regard to, I guess the first question is whether or not to use the services of Peters Consulting, correct?
Correct. And that leads, I mean, if it's a, I'm gonna be real direct, if you're thinking of the tax and looking at that, the answer, I mean, you don't have to do anything, but this is your person that's did this for the past 2 years, and this is a service that would absolutely be required by them and by Barnes to make a financial picture of the county to get these tax increases approved. In addition, and I'll let them speak, but the information I was given, they're willing to do more, way more than that, is to go and try and design a financial plan and try and say, perhaps this fund, perhaps this is a way, to go and to look at some of those steps.
So, we've used your firm before. And were you, working for Jeff at the time?
Yes, I own half of it, so.
Oh, well, I guess that'd be it. Guess you weren't working for him, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, so we've done, in the past, we helped you with the lower correctional facilities rates. I think what we're here to propose is a fiscal plan for you based on your current financial situation. For those who haven't seen one before, normally we look historically 3 years, look at the current year and project forward. In your situation, I think we'll just start with the current year and try to help with you guys in the current budget cuts. You guys are currently digging in and doing the hard work. Look where you're at, where you've gone, what that revenue is going to be for the rest of the year, and see where you're gonna be at, and what funds we can do. So we do all the major funds, we can add whatever funds you need in there that you think we can pull from, so we can make a game plan, a comprehensive game plan, instead of looking at fund by fund by fund. We can have a comprehensive game plan of how we're gonna get to 21, and then we can approach how we're gonna get to 22 and make sure all these steps get you to where you need to be by 22, 23, and then keep you on the right path so that the situation does not occur.
So regarding 21, how soon would an analysis of the different funds we have under our umbrella, if you will, and the transferability and such, how soon would we see, recommendations?
Probably do it within a month. I mean, we need June 30 somewhat, and we're still working on, it's not June 30 yet, and we're still working on it. But once we get solid June 30 numbers, we can work pretty expediently on that. You guys, with your input and your plans, something that we can plan.
And Jim, I want to take what you said and express it, kind of drive it home. So bottom line is, because they're already working on the jail project, or have a letter of.
Yeah, but letter of engagement with them already. With
So-
it. So you could, on your appropriation, right now would come out at 1233. However, if the jail project does not progress, or it's, limited, I think.
We would have to
you be
reimburse
prepared
1233.
The 1233 would have to be reimbursed. So what I would suggest, I'm just doing what you want, but you might want to keep a reserve in Riverboat at least for that particular amount.
And you said 25 for Peters Consultant, and then probably 10 for Barnes.
I would say respectfully, you need to think of $10,000 to $15,000 for your bond counsel.
Sure.
Did I quote you that? Correct.
I think we're closer to 12 to 15 for our end, and we're aware of your financial situation, so we're well prepared to hold whatever we need to with building once you guys get on the right foot. We do it with our debt issuances all the time, and we do year to year and a half worth of work before we get there. So we're very
So,
aware of that situation.
so 1250 rather than 25, is that right?
You said
12,000 to 15,000 to do the whole entire 21, 22.
So you're looking at roughly,
10,
yeah, so maybe up to 27 total.
Right.
Yes,
But you're also saying that you're gonna pay this out of my jail housing fund, is that what you're saying?
No, it's not paid out of jail housing.
I mean, correction on my.
This would be a legitimate expense out of 1233 if it's based on, if there's a tie into the jail project for the tax increase for the jail. The jail cannot be built unless there's a second tax increase.
I understand what you're saying there. I just wanna make sure that we're on the same page. If we're talking about a possible tax increase for the county to help cover the deficit, they're also gonna have to incorporate an increase for the jail project when they do the same thing. If not, you can't take that money, you cannot take that money out of the correctional
which is
facility.
what we just stated, was to leave that amount of money in Riverboat, so that if that's not the direction that's going, we reimburse 1233 out.
I guess my question, I just make sure, lady here, sorry. That they was gonna, when they work on this, they're gonna work on both taxes at the same time.
Essentially, if that is the county's
That's,
position, and also, in order to do the jail project, you have to get this fiscal, like, your county has to be in a better position financially.
right.
Like, you can't go do this jail project right now financially.
I want to leave the council here. Jim, you've been stating for some time that we need to cut across the board about 20% to possibly become state. Is that still a figure?
Councilman, it's increasing monthly. The 20% that was recommended a couple of months ago, it could encompass that. The difficulty, I'm not trying to avoid your question, but one of the huge difficulties was it was so hard looking at the existing financial numbers of what was kind of real, what was not real. What I mean by that is not falsified numbers, but just the fact that there was a sheriff rotation vehicle listed 3 times. So you're trying to take that 120 out, and you're trying to take that 120, and you're trying to match it. So that had to be corrected first. It appears in looking at these numbers that it's still about a 20% cut. Seems to be very consistent with trying to have positive numbers in your general ledger. Today, it's 145,000. It will multiply each month. And so I also use the figure kind of 2 million, and that's a debatable figure. But looking at those ledgers, I think you're still looking at a minimum, a significant cost in that range of 20%.
Second question, if we took approximately $1 million out of the River Road and Edwards, or Ritz, whichever we have, would we still be looking at 15% cut across the board then?
Okay, it's a good question, so, and it's a terrible answer I'm gonna give you, yes and no. If it's even possible to take that amount, that will cover a period of time of your deficit in general. It eliminates the balances out of both of those. If the projections are so off and it's 200,000-300,000, you still very likely would go back into a deficit September, October. So if you're saying we're not gonna make any cuts, those expenses are going to still continue. So you're going to reach at that point maybe September, definitely October, definitely November, running those deficits, maybe $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. And it's gonna wipe out a significant portion of your December settlement. I don't think you have an avenue, but I could be wrong. I absolutely could be wrong. But looking at the historical, looking at Crow, looking at the past, the general ledger funds were one time in 2019, $13 million. Then they went, by my memory, about 9. By November 30th of 2020, they were down to 5. It was an $8 million loss of value of the general funds. That's kind of what you're looking at. So it is very difficult, just looking historical, that just moving that money will solve this problem. Historically, it will tell you it will not. It's what's going to have to happen, but that won't, then it's over and done.
Would you also?
It won't. I mean, the payroll, council, looking just at now at the numbers, the payroll 2020 was something like $7.1 to $7.5 million. I don't know from the council perspective, I mean, if that is the payroll that you're wanting for Owen County year after year of over $7 million, if that's sustainable.
And would you say that in looking at like counties that our personnel numbers and payroll numbers for like-sized counties are higher?
I would say this, that the tax rate in Owen County, compared to every surrounding county except Monroe, if I remember correctly, is lower. You have departments that only have 1 or 2 people, therefore, no, those would be consistent. Looking at every county around, I think the more proper answer, council, is how to vote. I don't know you have any, no matter if it's too much or not enough. I think the problem for this county council is, no matter what it is, do you have over $7 million for payroll? Looking historically,
Which
you
means
don't.
without cuts, the only way would be to tax the public our way out of it. I mean,
Or both, I mean, you're going to have professionals come in and look at that,
right.
but at some point, but the exhaustion of your reserve funds will come. Not today, not 6 months, but at some point it will, based on the certain amount of spending and the base of personnel. I think that's what Crow lined out. I think that's what these figures are telling you. Your reserve, your money, you graph it, it's going like this.
Okay, so was that your final question, Nick?
That was my final question. I had some statements that whenever you.
Okay, well, I want to first talk the Peters and Associates stuff, because that was the first thing he highlighted on moving ahead with that. I think we covered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And it's Fund 1233 that we would use for an appropriation for their services. And I assume that between them and Barnes and Thornburg, an up to amount for both would be probably the best way to handle that. And based on, man, what you're stating is 12 to 15 from you and up to 15 for Barnes and Thornburg.
I think those would be reasonable, but especially Barnes and Thornburg, I report back, but I think those would be reasonable to start. Both of those have been willing in the past to hold bills and to work with the county quite a bit.
So an up to amount of $27,000 would retain them in their services.
I like Peters Municipal Consulting, and we've done work, and
but kind of have a little reservation at the moment of making a decision on this. You know, we still have a lot of moving parts. We took a lot of action tonight on a significant amount of money. My concern is that, just like with the Crow report, where we had a lot of, not all of the information that they had to work with was really accurate. It did identify some areas where corrections needed to be made and where there were mistakes made. But that does kind of skew the report. And I'd be afraid that if these are not processed yet and there's still some to-do items for our next meeting, if a firm, whether it's Peters or not, comes in and then looks at that and it's not completed, you know, the numbers or the outcome of the report wouldn't really be accurate.
Yeah, I mean,
How do you?
patient with you guys on what you're planning, right? So we now know we've done these.
Okay.
You know, before we give you a final report, we're gonna say, all right, you know, what else have you cut? What else have you done? We're gonna want updated. So say we ask for June 30, we're gonna want to see July as well.
Okay.
So we're not gonna cut a line in the same.
You see where I'm coming from on that.
Yeah, and it happens all the time, right? I mean, you're changing, trying to figure this all out. So we're not going to give you a static document as of June 30, 2021, here's your solution. It's going to be a working moving document as you process, change things, make decisions, the document will change.
The second concern is that, you know, we're down to brass tacks here. We've done a lot of corrections. That was our first goal. We've now done a number of cuts and reductions. We're waiting to see what the latest numbers are now. We're starting to dig into revenue discussions and projections for that for the end of the year. We'll be in a better position to look at outstanding obligations for the rest of the budget year. You know, how much more value can we get out of, you know, third-party assistance? Whether the choices are, knowing that the choices are either cut more or raise revenue. And so I'm just a little hesitant at the moment to make that kind of a call on whether we need to commit to third-party assistance. It may be that this time, July, we are in a better position to make that decision. I'm just not sure tonight to commit tens of thousands of more dollars that we really don't have without knowing the new impact of what all we've done here tonight.
So the second item is.
And I don't know if we can wait either, that's another concern, but.
Misunderstood, because I thought that, I mean, we have the three options: tax increase, layoffs, transfer the funds, but why was I thinking that this was required to do?
Yeah, so
these? I mean, it is required, correct?
If the possibility is going to be there that we would need to increase revenue,
And do we
then they
think
are
that?
essential for building that plan. So if
So-
number two across the council is, yes, it could be a possibility, then we would need that, and have
So we
in
need
the
to-
past.
Define that first.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to decide whether we are going to increase taxes. To me, that's something we need to decide before we consider, you know, hiring them.
So
I mean, if
we
that's-
need to.
Right.
But are you legally obligated though to have the assistance of a third party to change the lit rate? It's a simple ordinance that.
Yes, but you're gonna want to give tax impact to your taxpayers, I assume.
Well, we know the current rates and distributions of income tax.
We can also tell you what that rate, I mean.
You see where I'm going with that?
I understand.
Yeah,
I get it, but I also know big picture, you guys need a new jail at some point, and you guys have to have a fiscal plan to build a new jail. If you build a new jail, you have to have a fiscal plan. We cannot go rating, cannot go get a $20 million debt rated with the rating
True,
agency.
true,
So
and
maybe it's not right now, but I do implore you guys, maybe it's not today, maybe it's July, August. At some point, I implore you to hire somebody to do the fiscal plan for the county, so that you never end up in this situation. Because that is, what we do for our clients is we see this happen before, as it starts, and then we can let them know, hey, by the way, you used up X amount of cash.
so there's a preventative element,
There is a-
is what you're indicating in that,
So
okay?
let's say, a year from now, at some point, you guys, I'm for all counties and unity government to have a fiscal plan.
So Gary, can you, and I got you first, so go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it sounds like if we're gonna use your firm, then we're gonna look at raising taxes for two areas. One, to take care of the financial budget that we have here, under our supervision, and the second would be to raise taxes for the jail project, is that right?
That is the wish of the county. We are, your policies are what help draw our analysis. We're going
Gary,
to give you options. So we're not just gonna come and say, you have to do this and this, we're gonna give you option A, B, C, D. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I'm looking at your
on the 14th, we met during the daytime, and I know you guys weren't able to make it, but I do want your opinion on your thoughts on both the tax, increase and personnel cuts.
I'm sorry, Andy, we've got highway problems out here, I need to hit both
Do you
sides
want-
here.
Do you got a
Give
second?
me just a second.
I'm putting him in the hot seat, so he's trying to.
No, I have no problem with hot seat, I've said to him many times.
Yeah, so, let me rephrase it again. The tax increase, possibly for 22, and cuts to personnel, what are your thoughts as president?
Well, obviously, these decisions are yours, but my personal opinion is we have no choice but to raise taxes. We're not gonna come out of this, that's absolutely no way.
And the second question?
I would have to look at all the numbers again to see exactly where we're at before we start cutting personnel. I think that that's obviously gonna have to happen, but again, if we do that, it needs to be across the board.
Okay, thank you.
At the 7 million
Right.
Yeah,
figure.
so the 7 million number, Jim, but that's not general fund.
No, that's.
I wanna be
your total.
clearer on that.
That's literally going from line by line in 2019 and 2020, every single fund, and looking at anything that's payroll, FICA. So that's
Right.
highway, that's EMS, absolutely, it's not.
Yeah, so I wanna make sure, because that is a big number and that is very large, but if you're thinking general fund only, it's a bit different, total, so I don't want people getting hung up on that 7 million number. But back to the Peters, the request here, and again, it doesn't matter whether it's Peters necessarily, but just the thought of a third-party consultant. If you take the jail element out of the equation, just hypothetically, and you're just looking at the general operational lit, okay? Do you legally have to have a third party to do that? I don't know of any
We
requirement.
always do it.
It's
All our clients
commonplace,
request us to
yes,
calculate that for them.
but it really maybe not required necessarily.
What legally you have to present to the taxpayers.
Jim, do you have an answer on that?
Well, I mean, there's the legal procedure that has to be done. I mean, that's crystal clear. In the past, on something this monumentous, that clearly the council has in the past used both of these, the ordinances is more than a page on what we've done. And the other aspect is, if you're even remotely considering a jail at some point, 22, 23, 24, I know those are years away, but this all has to be looked at in a different way. So no, do you absolutely have to hire someone? No, but there's a lot of information that needs, the council needs.
So, look, we've got a lot of stuff to cover. yet in this conversation. So if there's a motion, or if we wanna look at tabling, or, you know, Burl wants to talk.
Yeah, what I think, and I know I'm familiar with Peter too, and I appreciate that, but what I think we need to concentrate on right now, and we can go back to them in a couple of months for us deciding what we're gonna do, but I think our biggest obligation right now is to find out how much we can cut to get by this year. And the raising the taxes, I agree with Burton. I really think we don't have no choice down the road but raise taxes. But at this point, if we raise taxes, that's not gonna help us this year. We've got to get that in the budget to where we got to see what we can save the rest of the year. And we have got some good cooperation from a lot of them, but I think we need to get all the cooperation we can from everybody in every department to where we can save money for the rest of the year. And we gotta concentrate on that first, see if we can save our hind end right now. And I think we really need to
We
work on
would
that.
just be ultimately cutting employees. Because the tax increase,
When do we have to
Taking care.
know?
That's not what I was saying.
right,
Well,
so,
if you're wanting, I mean,
Now.
October first is the deadline, wanting this to go in effect on January first. I don't know that if we wait until September, like, I mean, it would just push that back, but I mean, if there's no way that I'm aware of that if we start the process in September, it's gonna be concluded in 30 days by October first. The tax increase was clearly for your 2022 discussion, if there's a belief that there's just no way to maintain and continue to cut for the 6 months remaining in the year and your other 12 months of 2022. But yes, you have an urgent problem in 2021 and it's your red account, and you have a long-term concern
yes.
as far as 2022.
And that's my concern is we have to do this right now. We have to take care of this current situation. But if we don't think farther than the end of our nose, we're gonna be right back where we are.
Right, and that doesn't mean,
And so, and, you know, I'm sorry, but, you know, we know the jail's not gonna be this year, obviously. But like it or not, it's gonna be a time we're gonna have a new jail. Maybe 23, maybe 24, but, I just don't understand. My thought is, we've said we're probably gonna have to increase taxes. We're probably gonna have to have layoffs. And we can transfer money, we can do all three. I suggest we leave the 27,000 in Riverboat. Go ahead
would
with
you
the
like to make a
consulting.
motion on that?
Well, I mean, if you just look at our track record right now, yeah, Crow wasn't what we thought it was supposed to be, and, you know, I hate to say this, but, I think we need some consulting to include the jail, to include next year and the year after that. I mean, something's gotta stop. So.
You know, I hate to think we'd have to tax every time we got a critical situation. I'm not for taxing, I'll make it public, I'm not, right now, I'm not for raising taxes. The public didn't get us into this picture. And I believe it's time for us, if we have to, come 1 or 2 days a week and let's resolve these issues. I believe we're smart enough. And now as far as this company here, I have nothing against them, we've used them. I'm just saying, I don't wanna see us spend another $25,000 to $35,000 for something I think we ought to be taken care of. Now, does that mean you tell everybody tonight, cut your budgets 20%? And if you don't cut your budgets 20%, we will do it for you. It's not what I want to do. But I think this is a crisis situation. And I believe we've all went maybe long enough. And I believe these people here, they want to know something from the council tonight.
Yes.
There's things, I think, other things that we might even be able to do, and
Here's my concern on that. I think that, and that's the reason why it's a discussion point tonight. I think people wanna know what they've got to do, okay? That's natural. I think the other thing is they're afraid to assume risk in cuts if they don't see it from everybody else. Is that correct? Okay.
So we just need to say, we need to
set a date and say, okay, bring the, 20%, cut your budget 20% in whatever way you want, and if not, we need to set a specific date so it's done.
Yeah, so so we're on the tax thing now, and sorry, Pete, we're getting there, folks. So I'm looking for a motion. I feel like we're really, working through things here, but we need to speak in terms of motions and move on.
I make a motion that we do not look at a tax increase. That's my motion there.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Nick to not look at a tax increase. Do I hear a second?
For lack of second, I make a motion that we ask every budget head, office head, to cut their budget 20%.
I need you to withdraw your
Oh, I
motion.
withdraw, well, lack of second. That we request 20% cut, straight across the board. And the question that, that's my motion.
Okay, we have a new motion, and that's to request every department head cut their budget 20%. Now, is that based on the existing cuts that many of them have already made?
Well, they would, yes, they would be allowed to take that out.
I'm just clarifying.
That counts towards it.
Right.
Yeah, if it was on top, that's a bit of a tall order there, but.
Say again?
I can't cut my budget 20%, I don't have 20% to cut. By the time I pay contracts and salaries, I don't have any money besides that. In the assessment budget, I got like $5,800 that don't take in wages or contracts. Now 20% of that's like $1,700. I don't think you can do it straight across the board. I think you gotta look at each individual.
So I'm working my way through the motions right now, Kenny, and we're gonna move to discussion. But I've got a motion on the floor, and we need to find out if it's got a second. And then we'll go to the discussion portion of it. All right, 20% across the board. Motion dies to lack of second. Okay?
I really think that the hatchet approach is not the best approach here. And I think what we've been trying to do up to this point, and we've worked very hard on this up to this point, and the department heads have really helped a lot up to this point, is we found a lot of areas that could be trimmed and cut without significant impact on staff as far as like layoffs. We've been utilizing the freeze, we've been utilizing positions that have been open. We've been utilizing the use of some other funds to help as well. I really think that we need to regroup on our exact financial picture with these cuts we just made, and with the revenue numbers that are available to us through the rest of the year. I think we have to have an actual number, not just a blanket 20%, but I think we should have an actual dollar amount, that the minimum dollar amount we need to make it through the end of the year feasibly, and then see whether we're short of that still, or whether we're on target. I just think the 20% is maybe not entirely accurate at the moment, considering some of the things we've already done. I don't know.
But you have to look farther than just getting through this right now. And he already said, Jim said, 20% is not even feasible now.
He
So
also,
I don't, yeah, go ahead.
he also said 10 to 15 personnel. And the bottom line is, where we're getting bogged down here is the fact that, you know, sure, 20% may not be the number, and there's going to be, I think, lots of reasons why, based on some of the way our departments are built, that number isn't good enough. But what we're doing is basically, Anton, saying that, oh, okay, well, these numbers that we got voted on tonight, these are based on some people ponying up and making sacrifices, and others not making so much sacrifice. And, you know, we're really just getting there through maybe 1 or 2 mandates, and the rest volunteer money. And we know that at 7 million, it's unsustainable. We've got to become leaner, or we're going to be right back in this situation again. And I feel like everybody out here is just saying, lead, tell us what to do.
Right.
Well, and I'm just gonna speak, I'm pretty bold about it. We can't sustain a payroll. Everybody here agree?
Yep.
Even me, sheriff department, I'm public safety, whatever you wanna call it. We can't sustain a payroll from here, 2021. Jim's made perfect clear. There's not enough money to move. I don't care if you gather up all the money you got in your pocket. There's not enough money to get us through 2021. We can't sustain it. Only thing you can do is cut payroll. Here's where I'm bogged down right now. And Sheila will help me here. A lot of my line items are in the general fund. I receive 2 phone calls a day. Don't you ever send another claim from your general fund to pay anything from here on out. Nope, nothing. Other than payroll. Supplies, meals, gas, oil, and lube is in my general fund. I can't turn in the claim. I can't pay my bills.
We can't pay for transcripts.
So now I'm gonna have to take my fuel reimbursement fund, start buying the fuel out of it, because I can't spend your gas, oil, and lube. You have to feed my prisoners, or there'll be an injunction filed against you, and you can't survive that. So what we're saying, and I'll speak for everybody, if I'm wrong, tell me, if we need to cut personnel, tell us to cut personnel. Me and Matt will go to the office when we leave here, we'll sit down and have to inform some people, guess what? We're gonna have to lay you off for a little bit, maybe 6 months, maybe a year. But we cannot sustain this. I cannot go on another month without paying my bills. I can't. But I got received 2 phone calls a day saying, Sheriff, me and she'll talk about this. Other than payroll, don't turn the claim in. We need to do something. If I can't, there's no money in the general fund, and I got like 8 or 9 line items in general fund with thousands and thousands of dollars. It says I have, and I don't have a dime.
And for all the complaints about what the Crow report is or is not, it pointed out that we've spent more than we brought in for 5 straight years.
Right.
So clearly, something is not sustainable.
Right.
So what?
We don't need an exact number to get us to the end of 2021. We need to stop spending more than we bring in.
So personally, what I would do, anything for me, and I'm just talking about me, if it helps anybody, great. Me and him, when we're done, we're gonna leave. we're gonna go down and look at the cuts we've already made, add them up, then we're gonna look at our personnel. And if I have to, if I have to put my personnel tomorrow and say, guess what, you're cooking. They're cooking.
So,
If that's what we gotta do, that's what I'll do, and he'll agree with it. But rest assured one thing, it has to happen throughout the entire county.
Right, right.
I cannot kick in $400,000. Everybody's got to put a little piece into the pie.
so council, we could be sitting here facing department heads who say, don't do this, please don't do this, but instead, we're facing them saying, we've gotta get leaner and we've gotta get this corrected and done right. So,
That's what the department heads want.
I'm going to propose, and again, I understand that there are departments that are that are one-man shows or two-man shows,
Right.
okay? We've got to look at that, but other than that, I'm gonna make a motion that we cut each department by one personnel.
If I just want to add, and I appreciate what you're saying, I do not expect, I've got 32, 33 employees. It's gonna be tough to tell somebody they don't have a job for a while. I can't expect another department that's only got 2 employees to cut an employee. I mean, the 20% is not adequate across the board. What I'm asking every department head, elected official to do, and I think most everybody's doing it, cut what you can, down to the bare minimum. And if you can cut a part-time employee or a full-time employee, that's what you gotta do to get it done. And come back to you and tell you, that's what we can do, because we can't survive this anymore.
But do you think that can happen without a mandate with a number?
But isn't that what we did when we met over there? Just said, we
Yeah.
asked 20%, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then it went,
across the board.
yes, and then, because if you just say, do what you can,
Okay.
you're gonna do it, they're gonna do it.
I'm gonna make,
Everybody's waiting to make sure the other officers.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Last year budget hearings, and I sit there through a couple of days of that, different times, and we were dealing with a $900,000 deficit at that time. We asked everybody to cut their budget. I know I cut IT budget about $35,000. I helped cut maintenance. I did those things, and everybody here, and I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about these departments, they're already rock bottom. I'm telling you, when the 22 budget hearings come up, they're there. They got nothing to give you. All you got is personnel. And you got, like Sam said, he's got 32 employees. We've got other departments that's got 30, 28, whatever employees. We've got some that's got 2, 3. They can't sustain an employee cut. So we gotta look at the departments and what they're doing and their staff. But there's no budget left to cut. They're rock bottom.
I will tell you that there are some departments that even have minimal employees that I've talked to that feel that they could be included in personnel.
And that's great if they're volunteering that. That's outstanding.
But-
You still need to,
What's that?
but if they're not, you still need to do it.
Yes, I mean,
Greg?
I realize, and I'm just gonna state it, that I'm not part of the general fund, but because of the crisis the highway department's in, because of the flood, I've got nowhere to go for any money, and I am going to have to cut employees. That's where it comes. Gotta do it. That's the only place I got to cut. I can't cut material. I can't come to you. I've got to cut employees too.
And with me not being able to pay my stuff out of my general fund now, I've gotta find other funds that I've already gave up to pay my bills. Because I can't pay down the general fund now. For 6 months, I gotta go tell employees they don't have a job now. Then also, I gotta find money in other avenues to pay my bills because I can't pay nothing out of the general fund. Folks, I'm not mad at nobody. But that gentleman sitting right there could tell us that this damn general fund has been in the red for 18 months. Something is wrong. And the employees are paying for it dearly. But we're gonna do what we gotta do, and we're gonna do it tonight, me and him will. And tomorrow, I have to tell my employees you don't have a job. But I also gotta find money to pay my bills because I can't pay them out of the general fund no more.
So,
I just have one more thing to say and then I'm done. But, because what everybody has said, thank you for, you've already done so much, and then to offer to give up employees. But my request is that we start looking farther. I mean, we've got to fix this problem right now, I get that. And I'm just gonna tell you what I'm for. I'm for the layoffs. I'm not for a tax increase, but I don't see any other way around.
Right.
And for transferring the funds the way they can be transferred. And lastly, I'm all for having the consultants tell us, to guide us in that direction.
Amy,
Put it in the motion.
put it in the
Let's
motion.
go.
I mean,
I won't agree with that, what you just said about going in and hiring these people. Folks, we're millions of dollars in debt.
it's getting worse.
$35,000 is not gonna make or break us, right?
That's right.
If they can bring us some philosophy or numbers or help us along the cause. we're very
Okay.
much-
Wait a second, I've got a motion.
You got a motion?
Well, I think at least half of one that was out there before all this.
I'll add to it.
You were starting the motion, right?
I was starting,
Just saying.
but, if you're ready, I'll withdraw my motion.
If I'm ready for a oh,
No, to make a motion.
Started by saying cut each by one personnel, cut where you can, was what he had started the motion with.
okay. My motion is that, gosh, I don't know how to do this. You know what I just said? We listened to Jim. We consider the three options that we've been given. Given tax increase, layoffs, transfers, and I make a motion additionally that we hire or have the consulting, Peters Consulting, help us, guide us.
And what was the amount of the transfer?
The transfers, I was just thinking that, I'm thinking long-term, I'm thinking new jail, I'm thinking not going through this mess again. I'm trying to think, 2024. That's why
Well, the transfers,
the transfer of the funds and just, Riverboat.
Yeah.
And Lint edit?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then leave the amount in Riverboat to pay the consulting firm.
okay, so you're saying all but 35,000 in the Riverboat transfer?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor, by
And then maybe
Amy
we kill her.
to adopt, Jim's recommendation on a tax increase. We need to nail down, I think, more on the layoffs. Transfer all but 35,000,
Then that's where we'll go with the one person.
and hire, Peters Consulting. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Polly. Okay, let's discuss it.
So the funds that are in Riverboat and Edit, Amy, you're saying transfer the
Well,
balances?
yes.
So we can't actually just move the money, right? So we have to, does your motion mean appropriate from those funds certain expenses that add up to those cash balances instead of the general fund?
I was assuming general fund. But I know we've got, what, 360,000 in Riverboat.
850 and then,
Then I know there's a lot of things that we promised that will be paid from that, so that will just then go from general fund, or I don't.
No, if I may, it's okay. You can, as far as procedural wise, you just can't take the 340 and just put it in general fund. You cannot take the 850 and let it just put it in general fund. If you're looking for a procedure to appropriate up to a certain amount to pay for expenses out of general fund, that would be the appropriation. I'm trying to think of an example, just purely an example, if the county health was all being paid somehow out of the general fund and you wanted to pay 3,900 expenses or something like that. So you could do, your requesting would be an appropriation up to amount to pay then specific expenses out of the general fund. That would also be the task of the council then, of where are you looking at in the general fund, what are you wanting to pay? If you're wanting just a general, and no one wants to get to I'm just saying, it's kind of, perspective. If you are considering Peters at all, this is their focus of expertise of coming in here and then saying, take 200, take 250, and you would apply it here, here, and here in Riverboat. You also have to consider, I know I talk long, you have to consider and look at it, even though there's 850 minus there are still expenses for the remainder of the 6 months. So there would have to be an accounting of how much actual discretionary funds there are in the head. Again, that falls kind of in their area of expertise. This has to be exhausted, this is what you would have. Those are the two most likely. There may be some other funds looking at it. Council, you make the motions, you vote, but I do think that you kind of have somewhat different things before. Do you want a consultant to help? Do you not? Do you want to look ahead in 2021, at least examine 2022, at least examine the possibility of tax increases, or do you not? If the answer to both of those are no, then I think logically then it is, it's all cuts for 2021 and 2022. What all do you want to cut? I am not a financial expert. What I have tried to provide here is just historical data and try to clear this up. All I can tell you is from my opinion, council, I'm reading 13.9.5 in a negative fashion. I don't know your exact number that you need to get through to 2021. I do not know that. I can tell you with 99.9% certainty, not making any cuts absolutely will not get you there. Your biggest expense that you have when you graph it out is clearly the payroll. I don't think that's debatable in any way. I know that it's a lot of information, but I just mean, I don't know if you can do all four without doing that 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know.
So here's the thing, as regarding your motion.
What he said, those two things, that's what I vote yes to rather than no, and let them decide where the money goes. And I know I'm probably thinking way wrong. We have to decide, are we going to consider a tax increase?
Right.
And the layoffs.
Right.
And I think I'm the only one that has said, yes, I would consider, and Nick said no. Right? Tax, yes.
So my question is, Amy.
But then that goes to them.
Right, so I just wanna work through this motion. So yours would be to hire Peters Consulting, and would now, based on what he said, do you think it would, do you think you would accept a friendly amendment that says upon hiring them, direct the money in Riverboat and, Lit to position ourselves where, possibly to entertain a recommendation on what to do with that. Is that what you're saying? Or do you okay. The second thing is, I really do think folks in the room want some type of, clearly, I guess, what.
Yeah, I don't know how to make the motion correctly, I'm sorry.
No, you're doing great. So I would say that at our July meeting in 2 weeks, and we've got a motion and a second, so I'm just talking in the discussion phase here, that either they accept that a cut would be made of one or more, or they come prepared to explain to the council absolutely why their office cannot. Something to that effect.
Okay.
Now, I'm not, and you've seconded it, Polly, so.
It's kind of complicated on that motion.
Yeah, it was a very broad motion, yeah.
Yeah,
It was.
You probably need to cut it down into maybe.
So, and you can withdraw and we can, you can do it again, or you guys can both accept friendly amendments to make it more direct and also it's however you want to move forward. I'm just trying to help here.
I know, and I appreciate that. I don't know, I'm stuck on the tax increases. If you're going to do it in 2022, I thought it had to be now. I'm thinking that, I'm saying, yes, there's going to have to be, and if there is going to have to be, then we need Peters Consulting.
Okay.
Okay, with me so far?
Yep.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying, and I don't know where anybody else stands on that rather than Nick.
Well, we don't need to yet, because we haven't come to a vote.
Okay, so make it real easy then. My motion is that we hire Peters.
Okay.
And that, for consideration of possible tax increase for 2022, and that they direct us on how to, transfer the monies and, reduce employment of employees.
Okay, do you want to withdraw your first
No,
motion?
please.
Okay. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor by Amy.
I'm sorry.
I have a motion on the floor by Amy to hire Peters Consultants. You want a specified amount in that up to amount?
Oh, on payment?
Yes.
25?
To $25,000
No, that's total.
for
That's
consideration of a tax increase. Okay.
She told me 12.5. That's right.
Okay.
They also said they'd invoice the end of the year, so it might be.
A little delay in
Do I hear a second?
I second.
Seconded by Polly. Okay, further discussion.
I would like to say, Amy, out of 7 individuals here, you'll find it, we won't always agree.
Oh, I know that.
You know, I appreciate you taking time here and speaking out, even though
Okay.
I want you to.
No, oh,
Yeah,
I
no.
say no.
All right, any further discussion?
imminent question.
Yes.
You started to say reduce employees and then.
No, we're gonna handle this.
Yeah,
first.
just, yeah, this is just the consulting.
Thank you
Can I ask
for your
one
help.
question?
Yes.
They're talking about, obviously, I don't vote and I have no opinion, but I just want to kind of clarify something. If the council does vote to hire, their next meeting is July 12th. I know that's less than 2 weeks. Is there any possibility by July 12th, there would even just be a preliminary on one particular thing? How to make the general fund fluent in July and August? Would you have the ability to look at what transfers you can recommend to them, get them advertised so that the general fund can be made in the black in July.
So you're not going to necessarily be able to make the general fund black by transferring money in. You're going to have to allocate expenditures out of the general fund. So 2 weeks is pretty tight, but, we can have some sort of preliminary game plan
Alright, so
on at least what can go into the seeded fund, and what can go into the rainy day fund. It's not going to be our final.
No, understood, but I'm just saying, for council in there, so there's clarity, if that's something that the council's interested in this short period of time, of making major progress into the general fund.
any further discussion? Yes.
Can't have a public hearing for all of the other stuff that you voted to do. We need 5 days paper notice and 10-day
We might move
public
the
hearing.
meeting out.
And you have a holiday in there, so you're looking, you would not be able to have everything done by the 12th.
Probably do the
You're
following
probably,
Monday.
What if we looked at bumping our meeting back a few days?
Yes.
I would say probably not before the 17th. It's gonna take me a couple of days to get all the numbers pulled together. By the time I get them to the paper wants 5 days prior notice, and then 10 days, and Monday's a holiday.
That's not Monday.
No,
Oh,
it's,
July.
June.
What about Monday the 19th?
Commissioners meet that night at 6,
We could,
do it before, I
We
guess.
could do it
how
before,
late you gonna be?
I don't know what all we got on the agenda.
or we could do it.
Not as long as you guys are.
Or another night.
That's because I didn't know how.
All right, what about
to say.
Tuesday the 20th?
It's done. Yeah.
All right, we're in the middle of a motion right now. Let's get to that. Let's get to that after this, okay? Anything else? I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 against? Against?
Yes,
Okay, 2 against.
I'm sorry.
Anton and Nick. Okay, so, now, moving along, so, cuts to personnel. Is there any new motions on this?
I have a thought, I mean, I don't know, they might run me out of town, really. We have longevity that is put forth by the county, not mandatory, it's one of those benefits that we give. What if we put a freeze on all longevity for 18 months? What if we put a freeze on chief deputy pay for 18 months? I'm just saying, are we trying to balance the budget? If we move monies around in such a way, can we hang on to some of our employees? I don't know. I know we got AIC this fall. I would think we don't need to go to AIC, it costs $2,000 or $3,000. That's my opinion, I'm just talking.
Are you on to make a motion in that?
Well, I just threw it out there,
I'm not so sure the impact would be there as far as longevity.
I don't know.
And I don't wanna let you stay on. And we talk about payroll and stuff like that, and me and Matt talked about, and I think we're all agree. We're gonna cut it with what we, tomorrow, somebody in my office, or in my sheriff's department will not have a job at the end of the day. And the reason I'm saying that, and I'm not trying to be crappy about it, we gotta do it. We talk around this all
Right,
night long.
but the effect has got to be across the board because not everybody's here tonight.
Right.
And
That's
so,
why you need to send it out. I mean, I can take your last item, I was gonna tell before we even started that even though you hired 9 people since your freeze went into effect, I mean, obviously I was gonna jump through the hoops and tell you how hard we were working and we are and show you why we need to do it, why the comp times are there. It's 10 o'clock and your plans wore me out. The reality is that we're cutting that employee. I cut her early because she didn't make 90 days. She was an excellent employee. She couldn't do the court reporter job. And rather than have her get into unemployment, I just had to look at her and say, you had to go. So we made our cut. You gotta tell everybody to make their cuts so we can move on. And the longer you keep waiting on doing this, we just get further and further behind because it's one more person that has to be cut because we didn't make the call back in April. I mean, let's get real. We have wasted money. We wasted money on a wage study that says they are underpaid, and now we gotta cut them. We wasted money suing each other, and who has to be in charge, and now everybody's wishing, oh, hell, I wasn't in charge of that, I wish I wasn't. We gotta start looking at some of this stuff, guys, and make a decision. Andy, you nailed it. We need leadership. Have everybody cut it. And if there's one party that's only got 2 employees, and they can come to you and say something, but the others that's got 3 to 6, they just need to be told, and if
I'll
they
make a
got
motion.
30, we go from there.
Right.
Make a motion that each general fund department cuts one person. If they can cut more, even better. If they can't, if they don't think they cannot, the county council sets a number of employees for this county. They can come before us and explain why at the July meeting.
I second that motion.
What is the time limit on this, Sandy, on these cuts, has that been?
Well, I mean, when we talked about that preliminarily, tonight, I think, August
8:15 is what we told
August
them.
15, yeah, 8:15.
Okay, so this personnel has to be cut by August 15th?
Yes, sir.
Okay, August 15th? Okay, thank you.
All right, I have a motion on the floor by myself, seconded by Amy. Further discussion?
So each general fund department by the 15th, and what about the ones that already took a cut?
Right, if they've already cut it,
They've already-
employee, then that should go toward that, shouldn't it?
Okay.
Andy, are we talking full-time employees?
Yes.
Okay, no part-time, but some of them got part-time.
I would assume 2 part-times would equal 1 full-time, but I'm saying a full-time employee.
If not already,
Right,
right?
And that does count the people that already cut it, you're not gonna.
right, yeah, I mean, they shouldn't
We're
be
talking about.
required to cut.
You need to sign something?
Otherwise, it'd be double.
Right.
It has different complications.
And it doesn't matter the size of the department.
If the size is an issue, they can come and explain why.
Maybe they can justify the 20% some different.
Right. Like Nick.
Anything
Gotta
else?
start somewhere.
Anton, do you have more questions?
No.
Want to call for a vote? Anyone else? Call for a vote. All those in favor? 5 against? 1? Motion passes. All right, I'm going to assume that whenever you made your motion, that
At least there's a.
because we've now entered into an agreement with Peters Consulting, that we're going to look for their recommendation on riverboat and lift. Is that what I gather from everybody else? Okay. I think we pretty much covered it, unless you guys can take care of something that I've not. Okay.
So that original motion where Case where she had all, that was all withdrawn.
Right.
I just wanna cross that off here, that's withdrawn.
All right. Madam Auditor, are you all right?
I'm sorry, I got everybody confused.
No, you did fine, Amy.
Yeah, I just,
Good discussion.
I do have a comment, and again, this is nothing against anybody in any department, in any area, but y'all kept saying across the board, and if you're just gonna take from the general fund, that's not across the board, because there's several other departments.
That's, yeah, I want to throw that mix in there. You're cutting one employee out of just people out of the general fund. It's not gonna work. You need to cut your budget in the whole entire county, whether you're in the general fund or not. It makes
Okay.
no difference.
Okay, I'll entertain motions regarding that if anyone wants to make one. Is that, yeah.
No. I know what she said, I'm getting, yes.
Is there a motion by anybody on the council for that?
I'll make the motion then, you guys are gonna be sorry that, we do the employee cut across the board, not just from general fund.
Okay. Motion on the floor by Amy. Do I hear a second? You want the second? At this point,
At this point,
I bet
wait till discussion.
I bet I can bet what your discussion point is. Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Okay. Seconded by Polly. Discussion. Ma'am.
So, cause I can sympathize with all of the departments through the county, making budget cuts, having to lay off employees and stuff. I need direction from my department, because none of my funds affect anything with the rest of the county, because my funds are restricted by state statutes and stuff.
Okay, do you wanna make a friendly amendment to exempt 911 from this motion?
Thank you, she's already understaffed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm already asking for an additional person.
Okay, yes.
Can you,
Yes.
do you accept that?
Yes.
Okay, it's in the motion.
Okay.
Right.
But 911.
Further discussion?
What about EMS? Their public safety, you gonna cut a paramedic? No, you're not.
He's right at his limit too, he's understaffed as well.
Right, yeah.
I'm not, he's not here,
They
I'm in
really
public
are.
safety, but it's gonna affect me, we're gonna do it anyway, it's gonna be done tomorrow. But you can't cut paramedics, they're first responders, they're saving your lives, dispatch is saving your lives.
Right, that's true.
All right, I'm looking here at Amy and Polly. Do you wanna amend your motion? Okay.
Yes.
Accept. Okay, the exception in the motion is dispatchers and EMS. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Against? 2 against, 4, 2.
So back to general fund. General fund only, is that?
No,
No.
all but those two.
Across the board, except for EMS and dispatch.
All right, in your package, you'll see a freeze exception requests. Clearly, tonight's actions will affect these. I would just ask that we would vote on these separately, because I'm going to abstain from one.
So the circuit court one would be not necessary.
The reality is that it puts me down to choose, just to give you the dollar point, so there's like 30 cops to one judge, 3 prosecutors to one judge, and prosecutor until 5 minutes ago had 3 employees as well, so perhaps he's down to 2. It leaves me down with 1 court reporter. Just the last month, they opened 11 new felony cases and we closed 50. They opened 24 misdemeanors and we closed 41, but I still have 252 felonies and 165 misdemeanors pending. So Sam makes his cut, and the reality is that I might not have as many dogs or people on the road that's gonna make those arrests, so that should make the prosecutor's numbers go down.
And no one interrupts.
Sam.
You live to do that.
Thing of it is, she's making a good point, I'll tell you right now, and whoever's listening on YouTube, I'm sure I'm probably the worst guy in the county at the moment. He's gonna tell you the same thing, my road officers will not be cut. They're a public safety, I will not cut an officer from my staff. So I have to look at other avenues, it narrows it down to a small margin. The public safety, my officers will stay intact.
I may still be in trouble, but we're gonna try to ensure it, because the reality is that my criminal court reporter probably has 280 hours, she's over on comp, but the reality is that I can't have her take it off, I mean, she's just got so many hours, we're gonna try to absorb it with Judge Hamlin's too, in hopes that we can. And I think we can manage it for 6 months, what I would ask is if we get to the point that we can't, that then we would come back, but I don't have any problem seeing that we can absorb it you know, I had a jury trial come off for tomorrow. So maybe the other one will come off, we still have other stuff, but I don't mind trying it, but it's hard to keep ahead. I mean, it's just that simple. They make the arrest, the prosecutor brings them, and we've got to process them. And
Here's the thing, I don't want for nobody to lose a job. I don't want nobody to lose a job. But I appreciate the public of being here and to see what we're going through, what we're trying to do. And I hope that some people appreciate it. I know we've got a lot of static over it, but I don't know of any other way. I really don't.
And the truth
And
is,
I hope it's a short-term deal. You know, I want everybody to get a job. But one thing lucky about it right now, there's a lot of jobs out there, so maybe that will help. And that's what we need to look for. But I don't think we've got a choice. I really don't.
I don't think it's fair to me to be excluded if other offices aren't. So I think the one person is appropriate and we can take our hit, we'll try to struggle through. And it may mean adoptions and estates get pushed out longer than what they were. It's gonna mean divorces are gonna get pushed out. Criminal rules have certain, timeliness measures. So when the child in need of services case, we're gonna try to do the best we can with the personnel that we have. It's just lower than most, but I want to try it just because I think it's the right thing to do. So I'll withdraw it for now.
thank you, Judge.
Position open.
So, we got her waiver request in front of you. I'll open it up to the
So
floor.
but due to the reduction that you're withdrawing that.
You're withdrawing, okay. Second is Assessor's Office and Reassessment, Kenny. Sir?
I had an employee resign and quit effective the 25th of June. To get the work done that we have to do, I need another employee, but it's not going to help if I have to wait one off. But if we're going to get it done, then we're going to do tax dollars, because we got new construction, we got sales disclosures, we got a whole lot of stuff. But if I don't get it done, the DLGF will get it done.
Okay.
And, I've been very conservative in the 27 years I've been here and 16 years in the assessor's office or whatever. And I wouldn't be asking for this support if I didn't need him or her.
Okay.
And also, just for the record, Kenny, this position is you're currently funded in the reassessment.
What's that?
This position is currently funded through the reassessment.
Yes, it's out of reassessment. It's not out of the county general, it's out of reassessment.
Let me just outline, again, being Kenny's, I want to abstain from this, but I want to lay this out, the parameters for you guys to understand. He's asking to hire somebody. The motion before was to take somebody away unless we grant at the next July meeting an exception to this. So there's some different things going on here, and I just want to make sure there's awareness of all those things.
Could you put it on, I can't remember, my brain's getting fuzzy, but, a number on, obviously, if there's only one or two, one in the office or two in the office, they can't take one away if there's only one in the office. Did we put a number on that?
They can come to our meeting and say,
Okay.
here's my situation, and then we can, some of them a couple of them could surprise you, so we'll leave that to the next meeting to see.
I just can remember.
Yeah, I think the motion was if the size is an issue, then there'd have to be some kind of coming to us for an exception.
All right, guys. It's 10:00. Here I am telling you I'm going to abstain and I'm cracking the whip on you guys.
Can it be something like what the judge just offered? Could it be something like what Judge Quillen just offered up and, because it's a wash right now, I mean, if we unfreeze this and you hire someone, but then you're still gonna have to cut one, so I mean, just bring it back and come back and see. What was that?
It wouldn't help me. If I can't, there's certain things I'm required to do. I'm required to, within 60 days, go out and physically be on the property themselves. So I've got sales disclosure, I have to send somebody out on. I got new construction I gotta have to do to put it on the tax rolls, and it's just.
I think what she's saying, Kenny, is what if this is postponed till you come before the council with your personnel plan on, whether or not you can, afford it. If it's deemed that a person is taken, then clearly this goes out the window. If not, then, your exception would be granted, I suppose. But the bottom line is, and that'd be 2 to 3 weeks down the road, but is that what you're saying? I mean, or are you just saying take a person or?
Well, it's gonna have to be one or the other, is what I
Yeah.
thought we had said. And so it's kind of a wash right now if we say, we have the hiring freeze, so
If you don't allow me to hire this person and I have to cut another person, I'm down to 2 people.
I don't think you'd have to cut another person.
No.
This would be the one.
This would be the one.
Yeah, the one that.
The one that's open.
Yeah, the one that resigns.
Would be your cut.
We just wouldn't fill that position until,
Opportunity.
but she's gonna try, and she's just.
I'm sorry.
We still need to deal with this, so, you wanna make a motion out? Huh?
No, I don't want to make any more.
Ollie and Tom?
My question to Kenny was gonna be about Tyler, the firm that's contracted to do reassessment and certain duties. Yes, Suzanne's here, you know about this, so would they be able to make up some of that gap in some fashion? Or even if there's a reorganization among the existing staff? It just seems like that's a good sized resource that's already been contracted and available. Even if you might save $30-some thousand on the front end, if they were able to pick that up for a fraction of the cost, you'd still be money ahead. I just, at the moment, without specific answers, I see there's a little more flexibility here than other departments might have, if that makes sense. And I don't expect you to stick your neck out with an answer, but your expertise.
Don't work with them.
Yeah, so.
No, but I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, it's different working in the office than it is.
Sure.
So, yeah.
All right, listen, I think we need to table this exception. If we don't have the department head to walk through it, unless wants to make a motion based on the information that right now.
And it can be reconsidered, it's just it would stay frozen, that's the default. No action would need to be taken if we just, and if it's another 3 weeks or whatever at the next meeting, it can be back on the agenda. So.
It has been quite a evening.
I'll make a motion that we postpone consideration of the freeze exemption for reassessment to our next meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion approved by Anton, to postpone consideration of the fees exception till next meeting, and that is seconded by Polly. I hear further discussion. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? I'm gonna abstain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 0 to 1. Okay.
And then the meeting date for July
Meeting date for July.
20th?
Is it the 20th or 21st? Tuesday's the 21st, Monday's the 20th, right?
No,
No, 19th
19th
is.
is.
Okay.
20th would be a Tuesday.
Okay. Tuesday, the 20th, 7, you guys wanna go 6 or 7?
Well, I'm flexible, I'm retired.
7 works good for me, but.
Alright, 7 PM.
If your guarantee's that big.
I'll bring
Yeah,
snacks and this.
I do, I do guarantee
Pot
it's
of
that way.
coffee.
Listen, next steps. This Friday, the commissioners have called a joint executive session with the council regarding legal. And that's at Friday at what time? 4 PM.
We tried to do that right at 4 where everybody was still in the courthouse.
If you can't make it, let us know. I know some of you are, working during that time, and clearly, maybe not all can make it, but, 4 PM on this Friday, okay?
That will be a closed door executive session.
Right. Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Do you need anything?
I'm not making any more motions.
Chuck's not here.
Hey, I wanna thank
Adjourn.
Sheila for putting this all together, and
Thank you, everybody, for your
Jim,
work on
put a
this.
lot of work into this,
Yes,
thank
We
you.
appreciate it very much.
Somebody make a motion. Who made the motion?
Amy Casebeer made the motion.
I said I wasn't making any more.
At least we have direction on some things.
Sorry.
Hey, I thought
I did too.
Bye, Anton, bye, Polly.
All right, we'll catch you later.
Polly, thanks for